Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a very, very special episode of Covenant Live. You might notice that it's because Andrew Navaro is here to discuss all things Earthborne Rangers, Hubworld, Aidalon, the quotation marks LCG format in general, and anything else that's on your mind. So, dude, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very excited. I feel like I've climbed through my phone or my iPad screen.
Yeah,
and found myself in this space. This is awesome.
The studio is different when you see what's going on.
Yeah, there's so much above us. Yeah, it's very, very cool.
You guys wouldn't believe what's above us right now. So, man, let's kick things off. First of all, how was your trip in? Because I heard it was full of eventful things.
It's been weird. It has been a weird trip in, but I made it. I missed my connecting flight last night, so I didn't get in until about an hour and a half ago.
Did you do the weird airport run?
I did. Well, I don't know if it was weird, but I did run.
It's like you run, but you don't. It's not like you're running on track or something. It's like
I ran until my legs said
no more.
No more. Just walk quickly, and then I did that, and then I ran a little bit more. But I didn't make it.
Did they reimburse you for your flight or anything?
They just booked me on this morning, but they did pay for my stay at the DoubleTree in Houston, the Houston Airport DoubleTree. I asked for a quiet, they asked me, do you want to be on the first floor, second floor? Do you have any preference? I'm like, nah, just someplace quiet. And then dude put me next to the ice machine. So
killer.
Thanks.
Did you solid there? You texted me about about your food options, which I found to be hilarious. A dive bar at the DoubleTree?
It was at a little strip mall that was nearby.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and you didn't get the frozen pizza?
I did not. No. Okay. I opened the door and it was just two bartenders shooting the shit behind the counter. I was like,
and some Red Baron pizzas,
I'll
baby.
Pass.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Glad you made it.
Yeah.
I like the energy of coming in a little bit rattled.
Right.
And, crazy. So let's talk about Earthborne for a second.
Sure.
Hey, congratulations.
Thanks.
Just in general on Earthborne.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people watching are as pleased that exists as we are, and that you're now you're kind of into it. You've done the first Kickstarter, you've gotten the products out, you've now got the US factory that you're working with. So it seems like you're kind of all those early pieces, I know that were super stressful to kind of put into place.
Yeah.
You're now on the execution side of that project. You got MJ on the team. So what's your general, what's your feeling about Earthborne Rangers right now? I know we got Hubworld coming up and all that, but let's not lose track of the true
the flagship
the origin. Yeah.
Yeah, well, right now I'm in the middle of production. So my life the past few months has just been working with factories, going back and forth, doing a lot of emailing, getting all the productions going. Again, newfound respect for the old production department at FFG. It's a very difficult job.
So what is it though? What are you emailing about? Don't you just send them the files and then they're like, okay, we'll print them?
There's a lot of discussion, and I'm really very, very aware that since we're printing on multiple locations, we have to match color, finish, stock across multiple factories. So a lot of it is reinforcing that need. But then just talking about different materials, another thing we've been talking about a lot is the stickers and just trying to solve basic problems of production, and there's a lot of there ends up being a lot of back and forth.
That's kind of a surprise
that way.
I didn't respect that part of the game.
Well, I think you could just give them files and then you get whatever they print for you, but that's not how I operate. So, it may just be me.
Is a lot of it just this hey, is this good enough? And you're like, no, it's not. And then okay, we'll try harder. Kind of thing?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that.
It's amazing how much of that there is in the world.
Yeah.
Are your standards high enough? Or can our job be a little easier?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, so there's a little bit of give and take there. But just, I'm working with so many factories because, we're working with Ludefact in Germany still. So, that relationship with Frank is ongoing. That's been awesome. And I've been working with Delano and Brian, our account manager there, and then his team. And they've all been great. and then we have the, all the other productions too, like the miniatures and the book and,
You guys go for it.
There's a lot. So yeah, it's been a lot of, and then also, still staying involved with development and doing a lot of work on Hubworld Aidalon as well. But yeah, part of my trip back to the States is we're going to be going to press at Delano a week from Monday.
Cool.
So Andrew Fisher and I will be traveling to Michigan to be on press at Delano.
That's so cool.
To do a press check for color, and just see it all in action. So I'm really excited to do that. I have not been to a printer for a press check since I worked at like a mutual fund company back in like the late 90s.
Man, that's a while.
Yeah, it's been a really long time. Well, because
not at all what I expected you to say.
You produce well when you print in China, and then like your job isn't production. We had some people, sometimes would go to the factories and do stuff, but I think it's really valuable to have someone on press if you've ever printed anything. Like I was saying about like the quality. No one on press, no matter how capable they are, is going to care as much about the product as you. So when they do those first like prints off the line, when you're checking the color, like someone who's working the machine would be like, yeah, that's good. Yeah. But I might be like, no, there's like a little bit too much magenta in that. And then we go back and
so they will change the ink setup literally right there. Before they start the run.
That's how I've seen it done in the past. So that is my assumption. That is how it will be done this time as well.
So tell me this: Are you? Let me spin a narrative of your life for you.
Okay.
And then you can tell me what is true of it. You get to FFG, you eventually get to art direction, which I feel like if I know you well enough, that is a really great, like that's a huge skill set of yours, right? Is to understand kind of, to see a creative vision, to kind of massage that and get things moving in the right direction to make something really unique and interesting. But, eventually you get to head studio to FFG, and, I imagine that brings with it a lot of responsibilities that are not necessarily what you love doing, but a lot of more management, kind of talking, conversations. And so then you leave there, you start Earthborne, it starts small, so you have everything to do up front, but you're also really close to the product, close to the creative process. It's literally stemming from you almost directly. And now you've scaled up, you've run some very successful crowdfunding campaigns, you've got a second game on the way, you're talking about production and printing and all of that. Is there any part of you that's concerned or less excited than you thought you would be at this phase of the game? Because are you getting further away from that creative energy that you kind of were pursuing when you left FFG?
No. I think the thing is, like, I know that I can always go and touch it. Which is great. I mean, there's a bunch of other things I need to do that I don't enjoy as much. But when I just remind myself what I'm doing, like, it's like, I really have nothing actually to complain about. And I think it's good to be pushed out of one's comfort zone and to do other things, because it just opens your mind to other possibilities. But throughout the entire process, like, I still get to work with Fisher and with Maxine and everyone on design. I don't get in there with like the tweezers or anything and I'm moving things around design wise, but I will make suggestions every once in a while. And I also work really closely with Evan on the art, especially like right now, because we're busy getting the demo decks for Hubworld Eidalon ready for PAX.
Okay. So
and as a result of that, he's just doing all the art. Like, that wasn't that's not our plan for the game line as a whole, but he's been working really, really hard on that. So I get to direct him and work with him on that, and that's super fun. So I still get to do all those things. Sweet. And it's really important to me to, however big we grow, to not lose touch with that, because
we've seen that story before.
I've done that before. And actually there was a moment I remember when, maybe it was like in 2018 or something, but anyway, I was feeling like really bogged down as like the head of studio at FFG, and I was planning on giving away my art direction, creative direction responsibilities, visual direction responsibilities to someone else. And I remember Christian at the time said, you should probably hold on to those.
Yeah,
I was
cool.
like, man, I can't do it. It's too much work. He was right. I shouldn't have. Well, it's water under the bridge. So I did it. It's, things came.
We don't know the other option.
Yeah, things came to be as they are largely because of that. So I can't say it's all bad, but I definitely don't. I won't make that mistake again. Cool. It's important to stay grounded. To
stay tethered. Yeah, it does seem like that's really important, and things that that everybody's, I guess, in our circle is learning as well. It's like stay in touch with the things that you actually love doing and that you care about. And I think a lot of times, elevation of one station at a place gets them more removed from the things that they were good at to begin with, right? And so, we see that also, I think, symptomatically throughout the country, if not the world, if I may wax poetically. So Earthborne Rangers, I believe you talked a little bit. Is it still December, January?
Yeah, we have bunch of productions coming together at once, but the main production of all the card-based products in the U.S. is happening at Delano. It's beginning in a little less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
how long does that take? How long does that process?
Well, they said it's going to be on press for a little over a week. And then obviously we got to assemble them all and all that. But our plan is still to have product at PAX Unplugged. So if there's product at PAX Unplugged, then that means there's product that's pretty much ready to go. So it's really just a question of how soon we can then start fulfilling orders. But it's definitely coming together a lot more expeditiously than it did the first time around.
Sweet. Hey, that's marked improvement.
Yeah.
That's all you can hope for.
I think so. Originally I was thinking that, December would be my under promise, over deliver date, because I felt pretty good about where we were. But then, we brought Maxine on board, and I was like, oh, we should take a little bit of time and just double check everything, and it was totally worth it. We got a lot of really good work done on the expansion.
So just on Legacy.
Yeah,
so
just on Legacy.
You guys kind of had Legacy done, and then Maxine came in and was like, well, let's get your take on this.
Yes, exactly. We'd be stupid to not take advantage of that. So then she and Fisher and I played through the entire campaign together. And then we made some tweaks, made some revisions. I did some edits, wrote some more stuff, and I think it's way, way better because of that time we took. But then that ate up my extra time, because originally I was thinking, we'll have it out this fall and I'll surprise everybody. But we gobbled that time up. So now it's going to be pretty much more or less when we predicted.
So it was standard promise, standard deliver.
Yes, hopefully. We haven't started delivering yet, though, so let's not count our chickens, sir.
What about, and we do have, as you know, and everybody probably knows, we do have pre-orders for Earthborne for this lovely person and the team over there on our site. So if you want to get the game, that is a good way to do it. And we'll start delivering as soon as you send them our way, which should be, it sounds like December, January, which is great. What's your, I know you're a vision guy, right? What's Earthborne Rangers moving forward into the next year or two? Is there anything that you can say or want to say about how you see the development of that game line going over, even over the next 5 years? Is this forever? Is this like a TCG that's going to try to stick around until people just aren't interested anymore? We saw, games like Arkham and Marvel Champions can seemingly just go. Mm-hmm. The co-ops can go for a very long time. So kind of what's your vision? What's your projection of Rangers?
Well, I don't think it's really changed. I mean, we are working on some extra stuff that we haven't announced yet. That's what Maxine's been working on since she joined the team. But
you've got our attention.
The general plan is still the same. Where we have we have 2 more big expansions planned. So we'll have 2 more crowdfunding campaigns where we'll have new campaign expansion. We'll have new Ranger cards, new backgrounds and specialties, and that'll repeat for the next 2 campaigns. I think I'm trying to get away from predicting when our campaigns are going to be, because originally we wanted Hubworld Aidalon. That campaign was going to be. Oops.
Yeah, you get.
That campaign was going to be this past summer. That was what we were planning on. Yeah.
So wait, how long has it been? What, a couple of years then in development?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We've been working on it a long time.
But then very buttoned up about that. That was very impressive.
Thank you. but then the Rangers campaign did so well. It's like, well, we don't need to rush anything. Let's just take our time. Yeah. So then we started planning on January for next year for Hubworld Aidalon, but there may be some things that might move that around because obviously, like, we'll be fulfilling Rangers. I kind of want to be mostly past that by the time we launch the campaign, so it might not be until February, and it just throws off like the whole schedule. I think, though, generally speaking, Q1 of the year is when we'll have our campaigns, probably at least every year for the next couple of years, because then we have the next Rangers campaign, which will be 2026. So that'll be a new campaign expansion. It'll be new Ranger stuff. It'll be awesome. So Maxine's just about to start working on the new campaign expansion. That we've had cooking for a long time, because the first campaign expansion we had to split into two because the vision just got too big.
Really? So it was Underground plus something else?
The original plan for the first expansion was Underground and the Verdessa, which is the jungle to the south.
Oh, cool. So is that the next one?
That's
the
next
jungle?
one. Yeah.
Sweet.
I'm really excited about that, like, because it'll have a different vibe. Legacy Ancestors has a very different vibe than the core game, because you're underground. Like, it doesn't have that like Splendor of Nature vibe. It has more of a exploring like a ancient civilization vibe.
Yeah.
And then the next expansion will be outdoors once again, but you'll be going to a place that isn't known. Like, the valley is pretty well known and well mapped and explored, and you're just going around patrolling there as a ranger. In the Verdessa expansion, you're going to be like blazing trails and stuff. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. We have some really cool ideas for it. I'm really excited about it. We'll see how they all shake out.
We got to get day 30 done of the first one, Jonathan. We can't, man. The problem with Earthborne,
take your time.
We just truly do take our time. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 hours for a day. Because
why not?
Yeah,
that's great.
We put the cards out and then we sit there and we talk for a bit, have some beers, and then like, okay, you gotta do some flora stuff. I'll do some fauna stuff. We'll try to explore that. Oh, sweet, we did it, and then we move on. It's really, we've really just been enjoying it. It's I think it's hard to state like in a review. I should have sit down and did a pretty good job, obviously, but what it actually feels like to play the game. And have you, do you feel like until people play it, they really can't quite understand what you guys are going for? You feel that tension?
It's hard to say because I don't know what everyone's thinking, but that has definitely been the case I've seen with a few people where they expect one thing and get something very different. For good or for ill. Mostly it's been for good, which is which is nice. But yeah, it is a very different experience, and it's cool to see that resonated with people.
Yeah, it's like pretty much a new genre. It's like kind of a new innovation on this thing. Now, speaking of innovations, whenever we talked to you, these many, many years ago at FFG, you told me about a concept that you loved for the LCG format, which was, why not actually see these games off with respect and dignity rather than letting them trail out?
Right.
So I'm deeply curious. I don't know if you can answer this, of course, but is that something that you've thought about with Rangers, that you want to tell a number of stories and be done, and there's the Earthborne Rangers experience, or do you think you guys can keep going as long as the players are with you?
Well, we'll see. I think you never know where you're going to be in however many years, right?
Yeah.
Like it's crazy to think of what my life was like 5 years ago versus now. It's very, very different. But the story I have in mind for Rangers is a complete story. It will take everything full circle by the end, and it will feel very complete. What we do after that, we'll see. I mean, it's impossible to say. Like, if people are like, we want more, like, okay,
cool.
We'll find something else to do. Yeah. It's a big world, so like, who knows? Maybe we do more stuff with the Valley and the Rangers. Maybe we do explore a different part of the world and do something else.
Or space travel.
Yeah, or sure.
You know, I mean, like this is a civilization that could easily find a way to get to space.
Yeah, but it's that space. Like I think that's the one thing about the setting
space, yes.
that I think is important is that they stay on Earth. Like there's not this like escape.
It's not Spaceborne Rangers,
right?
Yeah.
No, that not to say that it hasn't entered my mind, but it would be a different thing. It wouldn't necessarily be the Earthborne setting. But we've talked about taking the mechanics and then putting them into like space exploration. I think that could be pretty cool.
Yeah,
but it'd be a different thing. But yeah, we'll see, man. It's going to be 4 or 5 years, 6 years maybe before we get there.
Are you done predicting the future at this stage in your life?
Yes. Yeah. I at the very least, I feel confident that we'll be able to tell the Earthborne Ranger story and do the product line as I had envisioned it.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah, barring some unforeseen catastrophe. So.
Well, new things. Let's talk about new things. Hubworld. So you kind of just put that out there suddenly, like, oh, by the way.
Yep.
For us, and I think a lot of our audience, Hubworld Aidalon is way more than just the next Earthborne title, right? Like we lived and died the LCG life cycle for really a decade, I guess, or more. And for most of us, I mean, for us, Zach and I, was a re-entry into card games after growing up on the TCGs and then kind of being in a position to say, well, this is a different kind of card game. And we got really hooked on the format and the model. And then kind of Star Wars Destiny kind of got us back down the TCG direction for a number of reasons that we've talked about plenty. But, there's been some lamentation about, man, how sad is it that this seemed like the next big thing, the next way to do a community-driven kind of expandable card game, and yet look at the results, and so many of these didn't make it. The co-ops seem to be the only ones that can live.
Yeah. So
this is like hey, we get it again. Like it's a return to something that we feel like we had lost. So how do you square the history of the LCG format with an expandable card game that doesn't rely on randomization and collectability to be successful in your case and to be something worth offering an audience when all these other ones seemingly had some kind of issue?
Well, I feel like did we talk about this on a different podcast or something?
It's mainly
we talked about it publicly.
I think it's been personal conversations.
Oh, okay.
So we've kind of pieced together over the years about this. But.
Yeah, I mean, having been there through that entire experience and seeing how all those different game lines came up and then came down, like each one was very different and ended for different reasons.
Yeah,
it's not like. But I don't think any of those reasons are because the format doesn't work.
Okay.
I think the format works. And I think it's just a question of when you're a big corporation that is, pinching pennies, counting beans.
They might still counting beans. Is that 2024?
Find any more idioms? Like those are idioms, right?
Yeah, I think so. So spreadsheet says no for a big corporation.
Yeah, well, it's when you're not just doing something that you feel like is important and good and cool, and you have to justify your actions to a corporate entity and people who are expecting results on a quarterly basis. You start to really scrutinize how you're spending your time on the creative side. And what we found in my last maybe 5 years at Asmodee is that there was a kind of looking at like the bloat of products, because we heard complaints from salespeople or retailers like, it's too many products, like I can't stock them all. It's like it's just
hard for never players to get in at a certain point.
Yeah, it's too much, but we can't discontinue anything because people want to have everything. So it's like there's that kind of like discontent on the sales side, and then on the creative side, it takes a lot of effort and energy and money to make those products. And when you have a ton of them, they just kept, we never ended up, for a long time, we didn't end any product lines. We just added, which is how we got to be like this massive, 90-person entity as like a creative studio. Is wild to think of.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we have 8 people now at Earthborne. That feels big to me. Like I can't even really imagine or remember what it was like to, be responsible for 90 humans. But when you start looking at that from a very, economical perspective, you're like, well, we could just take all this effort and divide it into a few board games. They're easier to sell. They probably make more money. We spend less money to make them. So, let's start to pare down the amount of this stuff. So there was that kind of directive. But then, as I said, each of those lines had its own issues.
Yeah.
And we could go through them one by one if we want.
Every one
I
of
have
them
my opinions on each, but like they were
almost all licensed too. I mean, that's the interesting thing about it. Was too. Yeah, they all except for Legend of the Five Rings. And that one was one like that. Before I left, my hope was that we could put a lot of energy behind that, since that was one that we owned, to make that successful enough for to please the bottom line. And obviously it was canceled. I think maybe right before I left or right after it didn't last very long. I do have that spurred me with an idea. If they're looking at quarterly profit, what if it was 12 packs, 12 weeks? That way, all of it's front loaded on a quarterly basis, and you just keep
do one LCG
week.
Per quarter
every week.
Yeah, jeez. Well, that's a thought. I guess like Legend of the Five Rings, I think the issue with that one ultimately, I think, was that game had its time, and then the version we did wasn't really different enough to really capture anybody new. But the numbers of people, like if Earthborne has that many people playing Hubworld Aidalon, man, I'm gonna be stoked.
Okay, so that's like success.
Yeah. Exactly.
No worries.
Exactly. But in the context of like a larger studio and a larger business, not as successful as they want it to be.
So it might be sustainable, just not profitable enough.
Right.
Right. It's like you could keep making it indefinitely, but it's like, but we could also use this manpower to do other more profitable things instead. So we're going to pivot there.
Yeah. Well, I point to I think one of the best examples that shows like, even if a game isn't crushing it, we still felt it was worth doing. That is the original Call of Cthulhu LCG.
Yeah.
Like we would have like sub 10 people, like 8 people show up at the World Championships.
Yeah, I remember. That. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Jeremy's run one. He's run one. Yeah. He's just
enter any LCG.
Yeah. It's just him and different versions of him from different timelines. But I think under like when we were a part of Asmodee, like if it had occurred during the Asmodee time. Like, well, I guess technically it was in the Asmodee time, but it was in kind of the transition period. We would have stopped. But no, like we kept that going. And I thought that was like at the time, I was working mostly in the art department. So it was like, oh God, can we please just not do this? Because we're like drowning in Lord of the Rings and we have so many other things to do. But in hindsight, I think it was really cool and really admirable that Christians were just like, no, this has a clear end point. Once we finish all of eventually we got rid of the chapter packs. Those went away.
Yeah.
Or what were those ones called? They weren't chapter packs.
It just came to my head what they were called. It wasn't Saga, but it was
Mythos packs?
No,
Mythos packs was Arkham.
That's Arkham.
It's close.
That should be chapter packs.
Yeah.
Why didn't we do that? Yeah.
No, it was, oh my gosh. No, chapter packs was Thrones, which made sense. It's a book. Everything's books, I guess, though. So maybe not the best.
Asylum packs? I forget what they were called.
It's right on the edge of my head.
Anyway, we stopped doing the monthly packs and then just pared it down to the faction boxes.
It's usually the deluxes.
Yeah, the deluxe
expansions.
Boxes.
Yeah. And we still kept it going.
Yeah, we kept that going. We printed I think 2,000 of those.
Wow.
It's like
and you're like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, but they sold. we knew we'd sell them. We knew we made our money back on them. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
they weren't like massively profitable or anything. But I think that really respects the players, respects the game line.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it ended, I don't, maybe there weren't enough people to like, raise an alarm or get all up in arms about it.
17 Jeremy's words rose up.
That's right.
How am I going to win this game?
No one was like mad or anything about at least as far as I know about that game line coming to an end, because it felt very natural. So I think like if we could have kept all those licenses, like the GW license, Netrunner license, all those things, I think like Conquest would have gone on a lot longer. Netrunner would have probably, been going on.
Netrunner seems like it was
legally
a weird one
right now instead of in a weird state.
Yeah, with the copyright thing or the license thing. That seems
Asylum Pass.
Asylum Pass.
Asylum Pass, yeah. So I got it. I said that.
It's good brand. So basically what you're saying is that, in your experience, you're probably one of, if not the most experienced person with this format from a behind the scenes. You've seen every side of it. I mean, you've seen every side of it. You're saying that sustainability is there and even profitability is there, just not enough to justify, as the spreadsheet gets bigger, it's not enough to justify the investment.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
When do you think approximately you'll become a soulless organization? Are you think you're a year away, 2 years away?
Hopefully never.
Is there any kind of glittering prizes out there that once you can afford them, you'll just kind of be like, this is now the focus of my life, and I'm not interested in creating any.
I turned 50 this year.
Oh wow! I didn't know that. Why didn't you tell me that? 50?
I don't know.
You look better than ever.
Thanks.
I think you look better than the first day I met you.
Wow, thank you. I feel good. So, like, I don't think I have that long to go until I, theoretically retire. I don't know if I'll ever feel like retiring, but who can say? But I don't know. 15 years, I think I can go 15 years without becoming, letting Earthborne become a soulless corporate entity.
Yeah, it feels like it would be harder now for that to happen. I think you've missed your chasing the earthly desires phase.
Yes.
So you've made it over the hump there, and now you're just looking to create something that's meaningful, I assume.
Absolutely.
That's
all that really that's all that matters. Like I think, I've thought about this before too, and also, trying to psych myself up to do all this local manufacturing stuff, because it doesn't make any sense. Except from the point of view of the vision of the company, is to do things sustainably as possible. So we can do it, we're doing it. But back when I first launched Earthborne, like I could have just done another board game company and done that all over again. I know how to do that, but I wanted to do something that was deeper.
Yeah, and I've talked to you at various points throughout the process, and I think a lot of people would probably not be aware of the immense amount of stress that it took to do that, to get that off the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's good. Like I don't think. I don't need to be out there like telling people how stressed out I am about stuff.
Yeah, I do think though it's helpful to know that it wasn't that you left FFG and you were like, I've got this, and then you just start this great company and make this great game.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah, I got dicey for several times along the way.
Yeah. Let's talk about Hubworld, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
Where does this come from? So we know it's inspired kind of, everybody's been really talking about the Netrunner mechanics and this idea of hide and seek and capturing the agendas and not direct conflict, and it has been surprising that very few have tried to emulate that in other ways, right? I think what is the altered the QR code one?
Yeah,
they're doing like a race. So we're in Keyforge was a race. So we're seeing some different.
Isn't Lorcana a race as well?
Lorcana is a race, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a direct conflict.
I'm not sure.
But not hide and seek, still race.
Yeah, not quite. It's not quite,
not quite
nothing's
the
getting
same.
there. So we know it's kind of inspired by, you were a huge Netrunner player, Netrunner fan. That's actually how we got connected. We also know that you have designers on staff, and it seems like you're kind of creating this post-FFG kind of thing, pulling in some talent from those people that you knew then.
Yeah, well, we're all ex-FFG.
Yeah.
Except for two people.
All right, yeah. Well, and what, two of 8? So that's a quarter. So you're 25% fresh. And I know that you've been working on it for a while, but tell me where does this come from? Like, what's the idea behind all this?
Well, it's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, to try to do a game, a competitive game that captured the things that I really enjoyed about Netrunner before Netrunner became so bogged down with like having a massive card pool, and I think became less a game about running and more a game about creating an economy, and therefore became kind of less interesting to me. But for me, the most part was like just the knowledge of the card pool. Like, can we do a game that has a lot of bluffing and skill where you don't need to remember 1,000 cards? You know, like I think that was when Netrunner was at its best, is when you approached a piece of ice as a runner and you'd be like, oh, it could be this or this or this. And you start to like strategize and get excited about what it could be. And then and sometimes you can be surprised.
And it's like, no, it's the one thing.
Exactly. But then when that card pool got so big, it's like, oh, that could be,
it
could be anything. Like, where's the game anymore? Where's the fun in that? So trying to create a game that kind of tried to keep that card pool in a space where it was manageable. But then also to, try to iterate on that idea. Netrunner's it's a great, it's a great game. It's one of my favorites of all time. But it's not perfect. Not to say Hubworld Aidalon is perfect, but it is newer, and it's a little bit more refined. It's got a little bit more modern sensibilities to it. But it's something I wanted to do pretty much right away, right after the Rangers Kickstarter was over. So I started to explore this idea of what we could do, and worked with an external designer a little bit on an idea that was probably too close to Netrunner, but I think that was also partially part of the issue of our direction when I gave him the assignment, is that it came out a little too close, and then we asked for revisions, and it just all kind of fizzled, which is always the danger when you're working with a contractor. But right around that same time, I met with Corey DeVore, who's one of the designers on this game, and he left FFG. I'm not sure exactly when he left, but he left and he was doing some freelance work. He was working for WizKids. He's a 3D sculptor and was helping them with their HeroClix line. And it's like the amount of work he told me they were doing, it's insane. Like, that is a productive company. And they just go. Yeah, it's like, are there any revisions to this? No, there's no revisions. Just print it. But they're very successful. They're great at what they do. But I met with him just to kind of chat, and he told me about this game that he had been working on, and I was like, well, that sounds very intriguing. And then I played it, and I was like, oh my god, this is exactly what I've been looking for.
Really? Wow. That doesn't happen often, I imagine, yeah?
No, I don't know. I don't know how you feel about manifesting reality, but it's
hugely into it.
Yeah. So like, I feel
You're
like,
here, aren't you?
Yeah, I feel like I think there's a lot to it. So, and I think it's all about, grabbing your opportunities when they come up. But I played this game and I was like, oh, this is pretty great. And I remember talking to Fisher about it. I was like, I don't think we need to, commission anything. I think Corey's design, hits the spot.
The call was coming from inside the house.
That's right.
Wow, goodness gracious.
So Corey and I ended up working on a deal where he would work, part-time at Earthborne doing marketing stuff, and then the rest of the time he was going to work on this. So the design of Hubworld Aidalon is a license from Corey and Michael Boggs's LLC.
Okay.
So we're licensing the game, and then we're creating the wrapper around it. Very, very, very traditional licensed game. The publisher then puts the setting on it and does all that work and the artwork and stuff.
Was there a reason? See, for me, I would think you would want to try to hire that in and have full control and full rights. Is there a reason that you did it that way as a licensed thing to individuals?
I think it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. And this gives them the opportunity to reap a lot more of those rewards and have a direct financial impact on them, more so than collecting a salary. And I didn't have the money to. I only had the money to hire them part time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't have a whole lot of money to spare.
Yeah.
Like today, if I were to encounter that, then I think we might be talking a different story. But at the time, I was like, yeah, I think I could squeeze another salary in here.
Yeah.
3 days a week. So we were able to work that out. But yeah, I think like in the end, I think it'll allow them to be able to, do whatever. Hopefully it's successful enough. They can maybe springboard that into their own thing. That'd be cool.
It reminds me of like Sorcery. Their artists maintain the copyright and the ability to print and stuff, the art that appears in the game. And that has been really productive for the artists as well, where they're like really gratified to be working on it and to be promoting the game as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think you probably will see some benefits from that of just like, reward. I mean, it's a game system that came out of somebody's head. Like that's pretty profound stuff.
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
should be rewarded. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also there is benefit in the back and forth between the publisher and the designer, where it's a little bit muddy with Corey because he also works for Earthborne. So, but with Michael, he's not an employee, so he can say where the heck he wants.
Yeah. Cool.
And push back on stuff, and I think that some good things come out of that that occasional friction. So anyway, I loved the game right off the bat when I played it, and immediately just the question became, how do we do a competitive game within the framework of the Earthborne vision, where we don't want to tread upon well-worn tropes of scarcity or like fighting over resources or like warring factions, all that stuff. And it took us a long time to get there, but we finally did. The original pitch for the setting was, I think, far more traditional, kind of like sci-fi epic stuff where it's like essentially factions fighting each other. Factions fighting each other for resources.
And there's an unknown alien faction that comes in from nowhere, and then there's the Space Marine-y good human.
And it wasn't quite that. I think like it had some good flair in it that wasn't what was expected, but at its core, if you boiled it all off, it was factions fighting over a limited resource. I was like, there's a piece missing.
But what if the limited resource was love? Have you considered that?
I have thought about that type of thing before. I think that's a hard sell, but especially for like the competitive card gamer, I don't know. You're like, we need more. My faction needs more love.
That is actually something you hear a lot.
But yeah, it's true. Yeah, but love is a limitless resource.
Oh, that's true.
So,
there's no tension.
There's no tension there at all. Yeah, exactly. So it took us a while to get to the point where I felt like the setting was there, that we felt like we could create a competitive card game that's tense and has some good conflict between the players, but the setting doesn't necessarily just reinforce all the same old messages you might hear.
When you guys were working on these kinds of games at FFG, it feels to me like it started with a license. It started with a theme, and then the mechanics spurred from that. It sounds like with Hubworld Aidalon. Do you want me to say both of them every time? For
whatever you want to say.
I feel like it's going to be called Hubworld. This was the first time maybe that it was mechanics first, and then we need to find a theme for the game. Is that fair to say for these kinds of card games?
No, it was the same for Keyforge as well.
Okay.
We worked on that. It did have a theme, but it was very prototypey, kind of just generic. And then we kind of wrapped a theme around it. This one, I felt like the theme, like what you're actually doing in the game, hasn't really changed very much from the original theme. It's mostly just the like tweaking little knobs here or there to get it to a point where it doesn't feel like the same old. So it's not like we totally scrubbed away the entire old theme and then replaced it with a new one.
Because it's still sci-fi, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, and there's
futuristic-y.
still shards, and there's still like these districts, and it was really just how we're framing the activities of the Seeker, what they're actually going on and doing, and like what are the resources that you're actually competing over. And there were a few things that kind of came together in the end to make that work, but I really pushed Corey and Michael to pitch me on something that was more interesting, because one of the things I told them was, to pivot away from the Earthborne setting with our second game, which I like doing because this I think sets the table where like we can do things that are not just the Earthborne setting. If we did another Earthborne setting game right away, I think it becomes harder for us to do stuff that's outside of that. So I like that we're doing something that's different as our second game. But I really pushed them to say to them is like, all right, we have this kind of like the prototype version of the setting. To me, that's not super compelling. There's no good reason to not just make it an Earthborne game.
Right.
And I want a good reason to not make it an Earthborne game.
Okay.
So that was my assignment to them.
So you think you could have done this system within the existing kind of Earthborne, even Earthborne Rangers setting, where the Seekers were Rangers, and then they were going and finding these things.
There's definitely stuff we could have done,
Okay.
for sure, because it's a big setting. It's the entire world, so there's really kind of limitless options. But so I gave them this assignment. They had a few weeks. They put together an alternate pitch for me. And there were a couple things out of that meeting that caught me.
You found it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like probably the biggest one was the art style and the window into the world. We were talking a little bit about this.
I want to hear I want to hear more about that. Tell me
Beforehand.
the story of the art style.
Yeah, so like in kind of preparation for as Corey was working on the game, he created like these mood boards for the factions. He got some art from the internet and some colors and things and kind of put them together. It's an activity that's pretty standard for when you're trying to create a game. But I never saw anything in there that really captivated me or got me excited art-wise. He was really leaning kind of heavily towards like a concept art direction. And to me, I feel like I've seen so much of that, and especially now when a robot can do that in 2 seconds. It didn't look significantly different enough from like what a human would do, where like I didn't necessarily see like the human hand in it.
Okay.
So I didn't care for that very much. But a couple of years ago, I don't remember exactly why, but Corey had done, just for fun on his own, a watercolor painting of like a building exterior. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of like really sketchy, like very, very loose. Really lovely, and you shared it with on our Discord, I think, or maybe in person. I don't remember exactly where, but it was great. And I was, I'd known Corey was a good artist. Mm-hmm. Like he does like all of our animations and stuff. He's like an amazing like video editor, 3D sculptor. He has a fantastic eye, very, very skilled, very talented person. But I didn't know he had this like illustration ability. So I just kept going back to that painting. I was like, that painting that you did just for fun of a building is way better than all this other crap you're showing me.
Wow.
We should do that. So please do that and show me what this world looks like. And then he did. And during that presentation, when they kind of repitched me on this theme, the kind of the showpiece of that presentation was this art piece that Corey had done, and it was like magical. Like as soon as that slide came up, I'm getting kind of chills just even thinking about it. Like it just hit me right in the heart, and I was like, oh my god, that is it.
Wow.
You did it, and it was very, very exciting. Like I could see, and eventually, well, obviously we'll share it. This will be, I think, a good thing for for a crowdfunding update.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll put
the painting that started it all.
That's right. We'll put it in an article. We'll put it in article form eventually. But seeing that, like, I got an immediate sense of what the world was and what the people of this world were like and what their lives were like. And also during that meeting, we changed. So originally the agents, which are who you go out and secure in Hubworld Aidalon, originally those were things called remnants. And they were like alien artifacts, and
man, I've heard that word a lot in this
space. Yeah, exactly.
Remnants.
So I never liked remnants because I feel like it's a little overused. But they were like these alien artifacts. It was very kind of more like standard sci-fi stuff, but they could be anything. They could be like a building or like a machine, or some of them were even like alien species or animals, and like, it was kind of all over the place. It could be whatever. But during this pitch, they changed into people, and I was like, oh my god, that just kind of makes it all work for me.
Wow.
So now there are these people. You're going out and trying to, like, you have people who are already part of your team and are in your deck, but then you have your opponent's agents who are like essentially like helping your opponent out. But then you have to go out and then essentially like woo them over to your side, or depending upon what faction you're playing, and it'll vary from faction to faction, from seeker to seeker. It changes the context for what you're doing with those agents.
Is one of the faction committing murder?
No, there's no murder. But there might be detention, right? You might be be part of the faction that's friendly with the collective, and you might be going out and then detaining your opponent's agents, so that they can't use them, or you might be part of the old Aidalon faction, where you may need to go out and, like, if essentially you're just taxing them. It's like, all right, you have a bill you need to pay, so you have to give us your money instead of giving it to him.
That is fascinating.
And it'll vary, I think, from faction to faction and from seeker to seeker. So I have little stories about what each of these seekers are and what their deal is.
And the seekers are like the personas that you represent. So you bring a seeker to the table.
Correct.
Who belongs to a faction.
Yep.
So like bringing Gabe and Criminal, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
It's very, very similar, where it's like you have to the runners, where it's like more of it's not really an organization. It's more like a life philosophy. There are organizations too, but it's very, very broad. But what I really like about that is that it preserves some of that asymmetry from Netrunner. Though the rules are symmetrical, the theme is not.
Because each faction is actually playing the game differently.
Well, each faction has different tools and things at their disposal, but how you're interacting with those agents will vary depending on faction to faction. Like, so if you care about, the theme underneath it and get into that, there's a lot of stuff for you there. But if you're not into that, then you're just taking your cards away, and it still works on that level too.
So you took that primary art piece. So Corey brought all the heat on this.
Yeah.
Had these mechanics.
This is his baby.
So Corey's just like, hey, here's some mechanics, and you're like, oh my god. And he was like, hey, here's this building, and you're like, oh my god. And so that combined to be now a formal game that is starting to be developed. And how do you what's your approach to take this building, right? This thing that you've seen. How do you, using your art direction muscles, pull out the setting from that, pull out the universe from that, Because I think it would be hard to kind of go in and say, well, the reason I like this is because it's, it brings a lot of horizon views, and it makes me feel like I can discover something and now make a game out and make a whole theme out of that. So what's the process like to get from there to a full art spread for this game? Yeah,
well, so for the setting, really what I did, and this is part of, I think, the genius of that one illustration. And I know I'm talking a lot about Corey now, but Michael Boggs has done a lot of work on this too. He's effectively like the design guy. So he's doing the nuts and bolts
master,
mechanic stuff.
Yeah.
But Corey's, obviously, because I work with Corey pretty much every day. Michael, not so much. But for me, it's a very similar process to what I did with Earthborne Rangers. Is that one morning, really, I took that art piece, It sat outside of my house and just meditated on it.
Stared at it.
Yeah, not necessarily stared. I looked at it, but then mostly in my mind's eye.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of visualized myself like going into the piece and then exploring the world. So it wasn't like I was like trying to pull ideas and stitch them together. I just kind of go into the space and then observe.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went into that art piece, like I could see like the life of someone who is essentially of like a lower caste, like a working class kind of person in his community. And I had a very, very vivid picture of what his life was like. And it immediately started answering a bunch of questions I had in my mind of like how this world worked. And then all of the pretty much all the ideas for the setting as it exists now came out of that one little session of sitting down and writing things out. And then I met with Corey about it because I really liked it. I felt really connected to it, and I was like, man, hopefully Corey likes it. And then when the whole team came down to Costa Rica, I pitched him on. And he's like, that sounds awesome. So yeah, it's it makes things a lot easier when you don't need to reach to discover what is in the world when you're creating a setting, when you're just able to kind of just experience it as best you can.
It's pretty amazing.
It's fun. It's a really cool thing to do.
Jonathan, do you do stuff like that? I've never done that.
Imagine? Use my imagination?
Yeah, it's essentially actually, like intentional, very intentional using your imagination.
There's so this may be a little bit off topic, but it's also mostly on topic. So there's most meditations are about like clearing your mind and stuff like that. Yeah. But there's the other side of the coin, which is to unleash your mind and to let it expand and to let it like go. Like you kind of set it on an intention, like, hey, what's like. And I find that extremely gratifying. Yeah. And I am very renewed by that. And I do try to do it at least once a month if I can, if not more. It's one of my favorite things to do.
I must be missing out. I'm just over here trying to get by. When you go into the piece, give me a little, give me some descriptors of what you feel, what you think. So you go in. You start hearing the noise of the street, I imagine, that kind of stuff. So bring me into this world a little bit.
So I found myself inside like the domicile of this character. This like it was kind of like a young kid who was the first thing I thought of was he was kind of waiting by the food dispenser for whatever they were going to get for that day, and like it came out, it was like a little like cylinder of protein stuff or something. And he was dissatisfied with what he was getting. So he's like, so then I started thinking, okay, well, what would you do if you're in a position you want something a little bit nicer? And then I was thinking of like, well, what if this world, everyone's taken care of, you have a home, you have food, but if you want more, you have to go a little bit outside of what has been assigned to you as your lot. So then I imagined like, well, what if, they have the people in this community are like, have to like secretly grow their own food. Because if they grow too much food, then the collective will come and say like, well, this is beyond your apportioned amount. So we have to distribute this.
Got it.
Or if you had to go to people like these agents to like, we have my uncle's birthday is coming up in a couple weeks. We want to do a big celebration. We want to have like a roast beast or something. You can't get roast beast just anywhere. So you got to go, make some connections to make that happen.
So you got to get approval, I presume.
Or not.
Yeah,
exactly.
This is the underground kind of black market.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So I think there's the veneer of the collective and the government that is largely in charge of every aspect of life in this city. But then underneath that, there's there's a very much a lack of control where things are done underneath their nose without their permission.
That that is a really fascinating concept. You have the kind of authoritarian structure, trope, if you will, like Equilibrium or these kinds of things. 1984, Brave New World. But like they're doing okay. Like everyone's like okay.
Yeah.
But just not like sometimes they want to thrive a little bit more, and so sometimes they want to maybe be more creative or create music that they can't, or find goods that they can't normally get. So it is a cool flip of the script to be like, life is good, but I mean humans or creatures or whoever's here, they want to flex their creativity and their discovery and. Often want more than what is sufficient, let's say. So that's nice.
Yeah, I think it's cool. And I think, part of what I wanted to try to do is, explore some of, what I think we more traditionally thought of as like cyberpunk type themes, and then cast it in a different light. So it's not so oppressive.
Yeah.
And really try to focus on the humans, the seekers, and their relationships with each other, or with the agents they work with, or just their communities. To try to make it again something that's more in line with Earthborne's vision.
So then, if you're a seeker, what is it that what are you doing? I mean, you're seeking clearly, but are you seeking for members of the community? Are you the guy that tracks down the turkey, or what?
Again, it depends on who you're playing, and that's a lot of work we have to do yet. Is to write the little. One paragraph backstories for the characters. That'll give you a little bit of flavor. But we'll have some of that. We'll have some people who are just, working a job as effectively a collective crony, just trying to do their best. We'll have those people too. So I think we'll have a pretty wide variety of human or humanoid experiences that will be represented. The cool, I think one of the things I'm also really excited about working on this game as a change of pace from the Earthborne setting is that there's really no reason for us to go farther than we need to with the story. Like, it's definitely just a setting and just putting out the pieces out there and then letting the game tell the story.
Love it.
Our intention right now is not to do like an intense narrative thing with lots of twists and turns. It's not going to be like a Legend of the Five Rings type thing.
Yes,
very much just putting out the pieces, letting you play with your toys, and
that's the great
use your imagination.
I feel like that's so much of what things that again, I'm almost 40, Andrew. Things that I grew up playing with, it was more that it was your imagination was filling in the gaps so much more than you're getting kind of a linear narrative of here are the important characters, and set by set you see them evolve and change, and they're telling a story through the narrative of these characters and these families and these houses. And instead it was just like, I've got a griffin. Don't know anything about it, but I love it, and now it's attacking you, or it's like in a castle. It's like, I wonder what the story is there.
Yeah, my hope, maybe it inspires people to write fiction, do their own. That's the great things about fan fiction, right? Is you can tell these stories, and the more that you close off those doors and make it more on rails, that takes away from that, I think.
Did you? Hey, let me take a moment to talk to you about this, because I watched a video about was it Miyamoto? Is that the Nintendo guy, John?
That's Miyazaki.
No, Miyazaki's the Studio Ghibli.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Miyamoto.
Miyamoto.
Okay.
Sorry.
Did you watch that video that I sent you?
Yes, I've watched it. It's very good.
So
Andrew will like this.
So the idea of this, it was kind of framing it around making the perfect Zelda game, and kind of his vision for the box garden concept, which is a concept. Correct. I may be butchering this, but I just pulled it from this video exclusively, so I don't know a lot about it. But the idea is that it's a garden in a box, which is kind of taking. It can be small, it can be big, but it's a defined space that you then create a green space within. And kind of the culture of the box garden is to have fewer things, because Japan, right? Have fewer things, but have them more meaningful and more impactful. You don't just stuff it with plants. And he always saw game design as building a box garden for players that they would then explore and kind of wander around in.
That makes a lot of sense, having played those games.
Yes, but you know, this kind of the piece went through the tension of the Zelda franchise from the very beginning of the Hyrule Adventure, whatever it was, that was very much, you know, very 2D and little green blobs for bushes, and all the way up through the heavier narrative cutscenes. You have to go to this castle and that castle and that castle to see this and unlock this part of the story. Mm-hmm. And how it felt like players were continuously asking for and pushing for that kind of experience. And Miyamoto was constantly saying they were getting further away from his vision for Zelda and kind of trying to fight to get that back. And seemingly with the more recent titles has done that. But he was saying throughout the process that the first one was the closest he ever got to his vision so far. And it was because he was building this box garden around all of the things that he'd experienced as a person, the national forest he'd been to, the ocean that he visited, etc. But it was so abstract that he was sharing that with you without still allowing your imagination to put yourself there, to hear the waves, to hear what it sounds like in that forest, you know, to see your imagination work within his kind of framework that he built. Mm-hmm. And game design coming from that kind of place to me is so much more compelling than getting a constant kind of go to this, go do that, even though it seems like that is where things continue to move, mm-hmm. because there's a desire for convenience and ease, and you don't know where to go in this game, well, we'll point the arrow on the minimap. Mm-hmm. So do you also feel that kind of do you feel any tension with doing Hubworld in a more open, abstract way versus giving players? Are you worried that they won't have enough to sink their teeth into in terms of major storyline?
Oh no, I'm not at all. Like, the game needs to be the thing. Like, the setting, I want people to be interested. I mean, obviously, like, enjoy looking at the art, like feel like they can, you know, journey into that space in a similar way, you know, with their imagination that I did to Corey's art piece. So that's really important. But as far as, like, you know, telling like a through line, like this seeker, we're going to tell this seeker's story now, mm-hmm. and then each set we're going to find out more about this seeker. That's something I'm not really super interested in doing. I'd rather you have your connection to that mm-hmm. seeker, and then you have your own story that you're telling about their experience, because your experience with that character is going to be different than anything that, you know, that we would gin up.
Yeah.
And just, you know, hearing you talk about like the original Zelda being closest to his vision, I hadn't heard that before, but I was reminded of how many drawings I did as a kid of Zelda from that first Zelda game.
Yeah.
Because it was so inspiring. And
mm-hmm.
I think part of it too, because it didn't, you know, it wasn't like hyper realistic. So you could really use your imagination and try to create something. They did have little drawings in the book, but it was super inspiring to me. And you did kind of feel like you were authoring your own story. Mm-hmm. I think there's definitely, like, you know, with Netrunner, I felt like, there are favorites, right? Like, people like certain characters.
Yeah.
And then as the fans start to say, or we start to see people like gravitate towards different runners, or what were the
corporations?
No. They're
factions?
No. Who are the opposite number of the runners in the corporate factions? They're like
HB,
like Jackson Howard. And what are those guys?
Is it PsyOps?
That's what I was about to say, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
SysOps.
Oh man, I never paid attention to that at all. It was just card text for me.
It was those little words under the picture.
So anyway, we found ourselves, you know, kind of, you know, trying to tell little stories with those characters in other art pieces and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
because Wizard got laced by that boom card or whatever.
Right.
I remember that for sure. And I was like sad. I was like, I don't know. It feels weird to play Wizard now because he's technically dead.
Right. Yeah. So like, I think we kind of got, maybe a little too carried away, like showing characters doing stuff beyond like the set in which they appear.
Yeah.
So I probably will like to try to avoid that. But it is nice to be able to have something else to kind of sink your teeth into when it comes to a character. But kind of like Rangers, like with the moment cards for Hubworld Eidalon, my desire is to not put the exact same rangers in there, so you can kind of put your ranger on, those moment cards. You can kind of put your ranger in that place.
Yeah,
we'll have a similar thing here where we'll try to keep that more general so that it feels applicable to like whatever seeker you might be playing.
It's funny because I feel like what Earthborne what Rangers was able to do, and I think the reason that it worked so well is the basic idea that you're trusting people's imagination to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's really easy. Video games are very easy to compare to, even though I'm way more ignorant than you are. You're a video game master. But it's
that's
like
me.
Software gets better, processing power gets better. You can do more, so you do more. So you make the things more realistic. You make the stories more compelling, linear. You make it an action movie. But in the end, I think maybe some of the great joys, well, I would say definitely the great joy for me of video games or tabletop games is not that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going in a direction that I'm not interested in whatsoever. Like I like the abstraction so that I can tell the story on the tabletop or on the screen. And it sounds like Rangers definitely did that. And then it sounds like Hubworld maybe is doing that as well.
Yeah, no, it's the same philosophy. So when you encounter things on the table, like it won't be a scene of a thing happening.
Nice, yeah.
It'll be the thing.
Yeah.
So, you're
the scene.
You are, yes, you are engaging in the scene right now. Like this is what is happening and you can tell that story in your imagination.
Can you tell me anything about the mechanics? Like,
what do you want to know? We sent you a prototype. We have it
this
in the box. I don't know. Is that
don't show people.
So, did you look at it? Did you have any questions?
I looked at it.
I'm happy to answer.
Can people look at it out there in the world? You don't want to show them, do you?
We can.
Do you want to show them one card?
Sure, we can show them a card. Or, obviously, these are prototypes.
Or
these
all
are
the cards.
These are not final. So yeah, the demo we'll have at PAX will be a nice looking prototype.
These are the same deck? Is that right?
Yes, it's a mirror.
Okay.
While you're sorting that out, Stephen, we've got two questions I'd like to get to real quick.
Yeah.
The first one is from Sean. Will there be an art and lore book for this setting?
An art and lore book? Well, yeah, you are, dude. I mean, yes, of course you are.
We could probably do an art book and a light lore book. So one of the things people have asked about this for Legacy of the Ancestors as well. It's like, is there going to be a lore book for Legacy of the Ancestors? And I think that could be cool to do at one point. And that's kind of what our thinking for the RPG that we've been, had on a back burner for a while.
It's happening though, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll come out eventually. The thing that made the lore book for Earthborne Rangers possible was the fact that we had so much written already.
Sure.
75% of that book was already written before we, published it. So we didn't really have to do a whole lot of work apart from just editing what we had, and then we had a few sections that we hired Lisa Farrell to come in and hammer out. So that was pretty easy. When it comes to this, it's like I've said before, it's more, we haven't gone and done any writing on the ecology of
there's
a
not
certain
a narrative.
area. We haven't talked about the origins of Lutronals and what they eat and where they live, and we did all that work for Earthborne because it's a narrative game. I feel like that stuff is important. To help give the world weight and make it feel real in a way that needs to in a game like Rangers, where it's it's telling a story, like an RPG. We will have that information, but it won't necessarily. Well, we don't need to go that deep.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think there's definitely a world we could do a more art-heavy book for this that has just little blurbs here and there, but nothing on because the World of Earthborne Rangers is almost like an RPG source book. It would not be that because we could do it, but that's a lot of work. I'd rather just focus on making the game now.
Well, if there's a piece of art that was bringing you to tears, I would like to see it in a nice, beautiful, big display.
No, that'd be cool. And I've kind of lamented to myself not being able to show as many sketches and early Earthborne stuff in that world book because we just ran out of pages.
Wow.
So we could do something that was more art heavy for Earthborne again at some point. I think that could be cool.
And then the second question, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I'd like to hear from you. Will Hubworld have a solo mode? I know you did very well with Earthborne and focused a lot on that.
A
solo mode for Earthborne.
No.
Yeah.
It is a competitive game.
What you mean to say is not currently planned.
It's not. Yeah. No.
Would you get your Soulless Corporation hat on already?
No. Unless, if someone comes out of the woodwork and says, hey, I designed this badass solo mode for Hubworld Aidalon.
Yeah, play it.
Awesome. Yeah, do it. That's
Let
great.
Players do it.
Yeah, but I don't.
Players play.
Yeah, I think if I don't want it to become like the Omni game. You know, it is. If you want to play a solo game, we got one.
Now that said, it is pretty heavily built multiplayer from the ground up. Yeah,
it is
up to 4.
It can be as many as you want technically. We haven't tested it beyond 4.
Old school 90s 2000s level thinking right there.
Yeah,
16 people at a convention table, just like
you could do it. You could do it, but it's a lot to keep in your head because you could theoretically interact with anybody at the table. I think you might want to create some sort of rule around a massive group that limits you to your neighbors or something.
Cool.
If I remember right, Maxine comes from Aliens versus Predator, maybe vampire background, and just playing these wacky multiplayer games.
Yeah,
bring great stories.
Yeah. So I think it could be fun, but yeah, we have not really tested it beyond 4.
Run me through the core kind of what's a turn in Hubworld look like?
So on your turn, you have actions.
Okay.
You have 3 actions per round, but you're trading actions back and forth.
Okay,
so,
I go an action, you go an action.
Yep. So there's a first player token. First player goes first. You go back and forth for 3 actions, and then at the end of the round, everything refreshes. You gain a shard, you draw a card, and start a new round. And the first token
that markets itself, man. Gain a shard, draw a card.
Absolutely. That's
put it on a water bottle.
I'd already told Corey we should put it on the shirt for PAX. That's been something he's been saying forever. I love it. It's got
gain
a nice
shard, draw a card.
Exactly.
Cool.
So on your turn, you'll have a menu of options. You can you can pay to get a shard. You can pay to draw a card. Mm-hmm. You can pay to stage a card in your on your grid.
Okay.
In your grid is essentially like the main servers for Netrunner.
Here, lay it out for me. What does a grid look like?
Yeah, so like you have.
And if you're ever doing more than you're comfortable doing on this stream with this game, just please let me know.
No,
we'll stop.
I've never demoed the game for anybody. I know the rules. Obviously, I've played it a few times, so I know generally how it works. So, but if I get anything wrong, I apologize. So you have your deck, which is your commons. You'll have your hand, which is your council, and then you have your archives, which is your discard pile.
Sounding familiar.
Yep. Yeah. And then you'll have up to 3 cards in a column defending each.
Okay.
But you have to kind of imagine a 3x3 grid in front of you because you can put cards face down into any slot on that grid at any point.
Okay. So you're not building from 1 to 3. You can go 3 and then 2 over here and 1 here and 1 here.
Yep, exactly. Okay. So you can kind of be like this and do something weird. And then
scoot you forward
on your
you in full.
Yeah, and then on your turn, you can then delve on one of your opponent's districts.
Okay.
So you'll start at the top, and then you'll encounter cards along the way. I'll have an opportunity to forge one of these cards and turn it face up. If I don't, you have an opportunity to look at it, discover it, and if you do, then that something could happen to you there. But you want to do that because this is also where your agents are going to be.
Okay.
So unlike Netrunner, where you have your agents at the back or your agendas at the back, and you're there, putting tokens on them until you do like this big effect. Agents in this game, you can hide them away, but they're also the most powerful cards in the game. So if you can forge them in a spot on your grid where you feel pretty safe about where they are, you'll want to do that. And then that becomes a target. But you can also lure players towards that target and then then mess with them as they try to get there.
Hijinks ensue.
Yeah, which is super fun. Or you could be like, all right, I really just need one turn of this thing happening. I know I'm gonna I know my opponent's going to take it, but I really want to do the thing. You just make that calculation.
What's an example of like a powerful effect that you might see on an agent?
Well, I don't know if it's going to mean anything to anybody not knowing how to play the game.
Well, we can start with what it does, and then maybe from there we can describe how it's impactful.
Yeah, I think I can show like just basically what. So we'll look at Toro and Bug here. A little preview of Toro and Bug. Is this good?
That's great.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to actually see the card? I can zoom it in.
Yeah, sure. We'll zoom in.
We'll go on a ride real quick.
So these icons here, again, all prototype. So all these graphics will be improved.
All right, there you go.
Cool.
Get it right there. Okay.
And I see some icons there. Okay.
Yeah, so like these, for example, these are icons. Whenever you see these, you can exhaust the card to gain these things.
Okay.
So if you did that,
that's like
that would give
action.
you that is not an action. That's free.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's an instant. There's tons of instants in this. So like when you're playing a turn, there are instant windows all over the place.
Okay.
So if you're the first player, you have the priority in the instant window. You can do as many instances as you want until you pass, and then it goes to your opponent. Then they can do as many instances as they want.
Okay.
And
can we interrupt each other?
They can pass it, but then you can come back and you can do more.
Okay.
You can't interrupt each other.
Good for you.
There's no stack.
Good for you.
But then when you're delving, the defending player has priority.
Okay.
But yeah, outside of a delve, it's whoever the first player is. So at any point, you can forge a card or exhaust it.
Okay.
That's an instant.
So forging is instant. Flipping it up.
Yep. You just got to pay the cost.
Okay.
Yeah, which is this right here.
Got it. 4
for this
nice.
guy.
He's a quick learner.
So most of the agents have a bunch of icons here, so they can give you just a lot of like really basic resources. But then also this guy's got this cool ability, whereas after this card harvests, which is what this is, you can shift it. So you can move it from one part of your grid to another.
Got it.
So if someone's coming to get this agent, you'd be like, "Rah."
As an instant.
Sorry.
Right on. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
But then they might have a trick. It's like, oh, actually, I'm here now. Like, so there's a lot of back and forth that way.
Okay. So Toro and Bug.
Yeah. So another thing that are on agents that aren't on other cards is what's called a cipher. So the cipher is the cost that you need to pay to secure that agent from your opponent.
To yoink it, basically, to steal it.
So in order to steal Toro and Bug, you need to exhaust an unforged card in your grid.
Okay.
So if you didn't have that, sorry, you're out of luck.
Unfortunately, face down. So you basically got to exhaust a face down card.
Exactly.
Cool.
And you may not want to do that because that might be the thing that you need. So there's just a lot of really great strategy and bluffing and back and forth with this game. It's super fun.
And what do you think is the kind of the fundamental selling point, the tension of the game as you've played it, and what struck you about the system that you thought was so genius?
Well, the bluffing is great. It's super fun, and I think the elimination of the agenda as the thing at the end of the road, that you always kind of know it's going to be one of these things where it could be anywhere, is super cool, and kind of the streamlining of that entire process is really great. But I think the thing that really gets me about this game, which is the thing I like about most competitive games that I like, is that you always feel like you can win.
Yeah, that's
like even when you're having trouble or like your opponent's ahead.
When you're getting wrecked.
Yeah. Even when your opponent's, you can still find a way to win. And that I think is super rewarding when that happens.
I think it has to be that way.
Yeah, I love it.
Otherwise, these games are just boring.
Yeah, and I think like I said, I think I've maybe mentioned this to you off air somewhere or something. I've said it somewhere. Is that the multiplayer for that is even it's super fun because you have to steal agents from a different player. So if we're if we're playing like a 4-player game, I have to take an agent from each player, and I can't take 2 from the same.
I love that mechanic, by the way. That is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it makes for amazing table talk.
Yeah.
And alliances and broken alliances. And
so if there's
so much fun.
4 people at this table and we're all playing Hubworld, then I win by stealing 1 from you, 1 from this person, 1 from this person.
Yep.
And that's the only way I can win the game.
That's the only way.
So rather than the dogpile effect where the weak player is just going to get, like Thrones Melee, it's like, oh, you got power and you don't have any things. Well, there you go. It doesn't really benefit you to do anything past getting the 1 agent and then now the targets are on the other 2 people's backs.
Exactly.
And so if somebody gets kind of wrecked early, there's not an incentive for people to go back to the wrecking process.
Yeah, exactly. Like if everyone at the table steals 1 from the same person, they're pretty much like they're in the clear for the rest of the game.
So now they're just now they just get to be the aggressor.
Yeah, and if you play with 3, you have to take 1 from one from another, and then you can take 1 from either.
Very cool. Yeah. So the anatomy of a run, if you will, or when you're
a
delving.
Delve.
Yeah. So you encounter a face down card. Now the opponent has the opportunity to flip that card up as a barrier to you, or is it all in the delving player's hands whether they want to engage with that card or not?
No, you have the opportunity to forge it.
Okay, so you can forge it.
If you don't, then you can look at it.
And they can so if you don't forge it, they might be thinking, well, it's because it's the thing.
Yeah.
And it's an agent, so this is why they don't want to forge it.
But there are effects on cards that are specifically for discovering.
Like snare level things.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So it could be an agent. Could be a trap.
Is there exposing cards in the game? Will you peek at them?
I think there might be some moments that do that, but if you look at it, you're on the hook.
Can you solve a long-standing question in Netrunner for everybody?
I don't know.
After you expose a card, does it stay revealed, or do you flip it back and have to remember it for the rest of the turn?
You have to flip it back.
Because everybody, some people would say, well, it's not a memory game. Why do I have to remember what I expose? I should just have access to it for the turn, so I can see it at all times. It's exposed.
You got to remember. It is a memory game.
Solved.
Okay.
Right, Who said it's not a memory game?
That makes sense.
I thought Netrunner was a memory game. I don't know. Maybe I played. Maybe that's why I sucked at it.
So what's the resource situation? Do we have resources? Do we have money?
Shards.
Yeah. Okay.
Shards are the resources. Yep.
And we spend shards to forge cards and also to pay for cards out of hand. Events,
play moments.
Kind of things.
Yep, and also to break these barriers. So whenever you see. So again, on Toro and Bug, whenever you see this icon here at the center, it says
6 red mountains.
6. You need to pay 6 in order to get past it.
Okay, straight up.
Straight up.
No subroutines firing.
Nope.
No, just straight up drain your cash.
There are what one might consider subroutines. Like you'll do the effects as they appear on the card from top to bottom. So you'll do whatever effect it is or whatever effect, and then you'll have the barrier.
Got it.
Yep.
So there's almost always a financial cost to get past anything that's forged.
Yeah. And so something's forged also like something simple like this. This
is beautiful. This is
beautiful art.
Is this the concept art we were talking about?
This will have art by the time we get to. I think Joe is working on this sketch. So.
What's in your front row? It gets +3.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, these are the different icons.
Yep. So this is +3 presents, which is this right here.
Ooh, what's presents do?
So presents, this is what you have to pay to get rid of a card.
It's a trash. Okay, got it.
It exiles it.
Uh-huh.
So if this is in the front row, this cost is 4.
Got it.
Well, this card's in the middle row, it gets +2.
So you got to pay 2 more.
Right.
To get past
So
it,
if you were to encounter this card on a delve, you would look for these rules, see where it sits, and then you'd have to pay 1 to continue, and then if you wanted to get rid of it, you'd have to pay this cost as well. But all you need to do is pay this cost to keep going.
And is influence a different resource now that we're gaining aside from shards, or is this just like...
Nope, this is all shards.
Okay,
yeah,
got it.
You're always paying shards to do stuff.
So pay shards to meet its influence to get it off the table.
It's presence.
Presence, and then pay shards to get past its essentially barrier cost.
It's barrier, yep.
Okay. Single resource, got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Makes sense.
And then whenever I think when you get to this, maybe I wouldn't say it because I don't remember exactly, but there's a way to put what's called heat onto your opponent, or you can generate heat. And the more heat you have, the more cards you get to look at. So either out of your council or out of your commons. So, if I have just one heat, then you get to look at a card. If you have two, then you can look at two, et cetera. And that keeps building throughout the game.
And it's irrespective of exactly where you're discovering from, delving from. It's everything that you're hitting, you're going to get plus X cards.
Yeah, but it only applies to the end when you're doing the I'm forgetting the term off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But when you're breaching a particular district, when you finally get to the end, then that's when that'll come into effect.
And you want it to feel like, so you probably have to get 3 agents in a normal 1v1.
Yep.
So you want it to feel like you are a seeker in the Hubworld in this setting, and you're trying to either find certain agents for your benefit or find certain agents so they can't benefit your opponent.
You got it.
And the different factions are going to kind of emulate that or create that tension in different ways. So can you give me an example of how 2 different factions would experience the game differently, if you will? Does that make sense?
Well, your tools will be different. So we have pretty distinct faction mechanics, and we have four different factions, and each one of those will have different tools at their disposal. But so do you mean like mechanically what's different, or
so I guess in Neverwinter, I think Anarch, the idea is viruses, and they're good at trashing things and creating chaos, and then criminals good at money and stealing money in the economy game. Is it that kind of a thing?
It is
where
that
you
kind
have
of a
different
thing.
Strengths that you're going to represent? Okay.
Exactly.
So I imagine there's a faction that's really probably good at maybe reducing influence or making things easier to get rid of, or exile, etc. There might be a faction that's rewarded for hitting a certain, maybe they always go to the deck or they always go to the hand or those kinds of things.
Yeah, and maintaining those faction identities is is really, really important to everybody. Fisher, Corey, and Michael. It's top of mind for them to keep those distinct.
It sounds like notably you also have to express that faction identity on both sides of the game. So they also forge cards and put obstacles in your way, I imagine, differently than other factions would.
Yep.
Right. Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
So well, here's the question I think on everybody's mind, right?
How is Elvis, and have you seen him?
I do have 2 quick audience questions if you need some second.
Yeah.
You may have addressed this earlier, Andrew, but Jared was asking, how do you generate shards? Kind of baseline.
Every turn you gain a shard.
Just gain a shard.
But the economy on your board is where you're going to get most shards. So like when I showed those little icons on the left hand side, there are a particular type of card, I think sources that have more economy than others.
Okay.
So that's really, you're trying to set up your economy on your board, and then protect it from your opponent.
And this goes to my second
most
question.
Cards are economy cards ultimately. They can all exhaust to give you stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
They can't all do that, but a lot of them can.
Yeah.
The second question along the same route is by the winning agenda. Is there a board players build up for programs and hardware?
Like, so I say that again. I got carried away by throwing up my horns.
Do you basically build? Is there a board state that gets more complex of your stuff? So are you installing programs and hardware and things that make you better at delving over time, or is it all in the 3x3 grid?
It's all in that 3x3 grid. It doesn't expand. There's no like remote servers or anything like that.
So anything your opponent is doing, correct me if I'm wrong, anything that they are building up, you have an equal chance to tear down by trashing. So nothing is really off the table. It's all interactable.
Exactly.
That's actually very captivating.
Yeah, it's fun.
Actually, as if I'm surprised. Wow.
Yeah, it's really fun.
You made a good game.
Yeah, and you can decide, how hard you want to go into like damaging your opponent's economy, or if you just want to go and try to steal the agents, because that's what you need to do, right? So you can definitely get trapped by your opponent into, like, oh, there's this card. That card has been doing work for you this game. I got to get rid of it. But then you get distracted, right? And I think that's part of the...
And you want to build your own stuff
so
that can benefit you.
Yep.
Interesting. Interesting.
This may be a little bit far in the future, but our friend Locator Gaming asking, are expansions planned to add new factions or expand current factions, or both? When you look at expansions, how expansive are you looking?
Right now, we're just looking at expanding the existing factions.
What do you think is the release model of the game? Do you guys have that ironed out?
Not 100%. But the idea is that we'll do a release every 6 months. That will be like a full set of cards that will make significant changes to the game, add a lot of new stuff, and we'll continue that every 6 month pace. That is really, really important to me, is that hitting that pace. So really what I've been telling the team as we've been, kind of gearing up to start working on all this artwork and getting all this stuff done, is that we have a little bit of leeway at the beginning, knowing what our goal is that effectively to have the second set done when we're going to press on the first set.
Yeah.
So then we have about a full year then to work on each set.
Nice.
Which I think is a nice pace. It's not too intense, but it's not too slow from a development and art standpoint.
Yeah.
And I think it feels very doable to me. So that's the goal. And we will also rotate sets out. So it won't be
there
like,
it is.
Yeah, it won't be like an LCG where it'll just go on forever. That's what I said during my GameFound interview, is that this is the first Hubworld Aidalon set is not a core set. It is the first set.
Love it. Love it.
And then there will be more sets. And then when that first set goes away, then we will almost certainly bring some of those cards back, introduce new cards, and then keep it all fresh. But
that is now your format.
Yeah. But like I've been saying, like I said at the top, like it's important to me that the card pool remain limited to a number that you can keep. Your maybe slightly above average player can keep all of it in their head. But as soon as it goes beyond that, then it's too big. So the idea is we'll always, I think what we're, I won't say, I'll say it.
You don't want to say target 3,
I think we
4,
would say
5,
like 4
8.
sets.
Yeah.
Will be legal at a time.
So essentially 2 years of content rolling.
Yeah. But then obviously, we'll have, fully sanctioned, because people want the publisher to sanction that they can do whatever with their cards. You'll always be able to play with your cards. We'll always have a format that just, if you want to play with that,
go for it.
Go for it. If you want to play with all those cards in the mix, then Godspeed. Like we really want people to play the game how they play it. But from the publisher perspective, that'll be our plan. So when those things rotate out, then those old sets will go out of print, and then.
And so it sounds like I'm just thinking about the problems that I remember from the LCG format, and how you're kind of starting to talk about addressing those right out of the gate. One of the things obviously is carrying all these SKUs. It sounds like it's really a 4 SKU at a time kind of game, right? Yeah. You would stock essentially 4 SKUs. It always struck me as kind of interesting, especially as I get back into TCGs now, that there seemed like there's a lot of tension around LCGs having rotation at all. I know you guys had a kind of an excruciatingly long, seemed like from the outside, deliberation process of, are we going to rotate these games? What does that look like? And then it was a very conservative rotation schedule. But, in the grand scheme of things, if you're getting a fixed pool of cards at a tremendously lower price than like a TCG set.
It's going to be way less to play this game than to buy into like a CCG.
Yeah, and CCG's been rotating forever, but it seemed like there was a lot more pushback of, I don't want to waste money on sets that are eventually not going to be playable, even though people are spending thousands more to do that in a TCG. It's kind of always interesting. So I do actually feel like rotation works best in an LCG format, because the upfront cost of those cards is just less. Yeah. So you're not losing a bit of equity, if you will, over the course of the game.
But I think it's a lot of it's just the perception. Like, that's why I think it's like, again, we'll try to make sure this is as clear as possible when we launch the GameFound campaign. But the fact that it's just stating up front, like, this is not a core set, and it will have a set name. So we're not really trying to confuse the issue on the GameFound page right now. We're just saying Hubworld Aidalon, but eventually it'll be Hubworld Aidalon something.
Yeah, this set. And so if I'm a new player and you guys have made it through into kind of sustainability, I would likely need to pick up the 4 newest sets, and then that's my full collection.
Yeah, that's
for
it.
The competitive format, right?
Yeah.
You have an idea, and I know I don't know if you would or should, but do you have an idea of price points on those expansions?
Not yet, because we're still trying to figure out exactly how many cards are going to be in each. But it'll be, especially if you're used to paying for CCGs, you're going to be like, or whatever.
So less than $6,000.
Yes.
One more question while we're here.
Yeah.
The question and answer section. Because I find this fascinating. Dysphoria asking, are all the cards siloed in the faction, or are there neutral cards? And is there going to be the equivalent of influence to spend on out of faction? That's a very important question.
Yeah, so right now no neutral cards, but yes, there will be an influence system.
I love no neutral cards.
Yeah, so like
please
if you go back to the overhead, there's these little dots that are just multicolored dots right now that don't mean anything on these cards. But eventually these will be the influence cost, and you'll have a limit as to how much you could splash.
Can I show the Seeker?
Sure.
Are you scared of that?
No, she's on the social image now.
Okay, great. So is this 3 actions?
Yes.
5 cards?
Yep.
That's your max hand size?
Yep.
Starts with 10 shards?
No, you have 10 shard maximum.
Okay, you only have 10. Oh, let's go.
Maximum economy now.
See that? Control players. And then so you can always exhaust her to get a shard as an instant.
Correct.
So you can take an action, get a shard. You can also exhaust as instant, get a shard. Okay. And if you have fewer shards in your pool than your rival has in theirs, you can exhaust to gain 3 instead. So does that gain you 4 or does that gain you 3 from the ability?
Just the ability.
Great. That's smart. That's how it should work. Great. And that's it. We did it. I love it. Paragon. And Paragon's a faction?
No. That is just like a subtype.
Okay.
Yeah, we're playing around with subtypes.
Cool. Cool. Turn on.
They're mostly there for flavor.
So influence is still a big piece of the game. So you can bring in other faction stuff.
Correct.
Some amount of other faction stuff.
Yep.
Sick. Dude, you get me really hyped. Okay, so
Yay.
But here's the okay. Let's talk about organized play. Let's talk about the way that people actually engage with this kind of a game, right? It was always kind of a big point of confusion. Our store focused heavily on LCGs. And, it worked in the sense that there was a lot of people playing them. As an economic model, looking in retrospect, it was very tough to make a lot of cash or really sustainable amount of cash selling LCG products. I think you run into the same kind of conundrum. You have 4 SKUs. Maybe the profit margin on that for a store amounts to a couple of boxes of a TCG every month, every couple months. Yeah. But we kind of still have this tension between, well, where do people actually meet to play these games? Obviously, there's the unknown element of of kitchen table outside the LGS, outside of the official place play, which I think is actually tremendous. Sorcery has really unveiled that truth to me.
Yeah.
You have things like the documentary, the SorceryCon documentary, where people organize of themselves to do whatever they want, which is an amazing thing that all human beings can do. But there is still going to be that kind of, what about, am I going to be able to play this at my local store? Are they going to be incentivized to buy it? Are there going to be tournament kits? Those kinds of things. What do you have a mentality or philosophy about the LCG problem at the local level, and if you can solve it, or do you want to solve it, or what?
Yeah, we'll see. I think our goal first and foremost is just to make the best game we can, right? And if we make a game that people want to play, then I think that kind of solves all problems, honestly. But
I think hands off, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, I think what Sorcery has done is awesome, and I think it's honestly how things should be. I think we can get caught up as publishers of like trying to force a way of playing the game onto players, and restricting them to like particular formats, or like making them go to a store to get a kit or whatever. I still think it's best when players organize themselves and do whatever the heck they want. So I think whatever we do for organized play, I want to try to enable players who are willing to put in the work and effort and are inspired to put together an event, that we can support them in some way, but that it's largely up to them as to how they want to get together and play the game. And to try to not rely on a retail store to you have to play there, or they have to carry it, or there's a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of baggage that comes with that. And I don't think it's really worth it. I think oftentimes, you can have like inviting stores that are, that are really good places for people to play, but other times people are really intimidated by that too. So hopefully we can do something similar to what Sorcery is doing, and just give people some basic guidelines and
have fun.
And have fun. Yeah, and it's what I've said about Rangers too. You know, like once the game is in your hands, it's your game. Play it however you want. Like, I'm not going to tell you how to play this game. Like, we have the rule book, and this is what we envisioned. But at the end of the day, if you have more fun playing it a different way and doing something else, then more power to you. It's your game. You own it. Unlike like Steam.
Yeah. Topical. Did you ever have those kinds of conversations? Maybe you can't speak to this, but I'm curious if the FFG internal dialogue had much to say about putting players on rails in terms of the regional system and the world's championships and all that kind of stuff. And is that something that you have an interest in as well, to have big gatherings like that, or a path to the championship or whatever?
I would love to have big gatherings, but I'm not interested in putting together a big organized play program. Zero interest. Like, I like making games. I don't like creating the artifice that controls how you play it. I just don't think that's very interesting. And I think, I mean, obviously we had a bunch of success with it at FFG early on, but then it just kind of stagnated. It's like, oh yeah, it's another play mat and another All-Dark cards, like All-Dark cards and play mats.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah. Bang, bang, bang forever. You know, when at first it was cool, but then over time it's like, all right, it's another playmat.
Yeah. Yeah, then it just becomes a process, right?
Create my throne of playmats.
Which did happen, really. People would come in with like the super stack.
Yeah. I mean, but that's kind of cool too. So, yeah, I think, you know, there's definitely, clearly there's value to that, and there's a group of people to whom that really appeals. But we're not really at Earthborne. We're not in a position where we can even create a massive organized play department. But, you know, heck, if this thing, you know, blows up and we have, you know, another multi-million-dollar crowdfunding campaign, and you know, maybe we at least hire a community manager.
Yeah, right. but that's the thing, is like, there's the organization does seem to happen, and you can support. That's what Sorcery's doing a really good job of. Support the people who are organizing because they want to organize. Yeah, not trying to basically kind of say, we need to give you shiny things for you to play this game, or like you're going to lose interest. I think there's just a tremendous lack of faith in players' imaginations and ability to understand what they enjoy. And like, once you start putting people in this like narrow path, this little box, and then it's like, okay, this is the only way you're going to do it, and this is the way the system works. I've talked about this on stream a lot, but you know, people just try to build. I feel like there's this human mind just really tries to build systems, like you said, the OP kits. Okay, well, here's a wild idea. Okay, let's streamline that down. Now it works. Now it's efficient. It's functional. Let's do that forever, and it'll never change, right? And it'll always be great, right? Right. And nothing will ever have to impact that, right? And then it's like, it becomes boring. Yeah. It becomes stale. Yeah. We systematize and then we lose interest. We systematize and we lose interest. So I do think there's a tremendous amount of progress in putting faith back in people to basically use their own imaginations in the way that they want. If they're bored of a format, create a new one. Right. If they want to play 4-player rather than 2-player tonight, let them play 4-player, right? Don't let the kit dictate what they're going to do. So hats off to that. I do feel like there's a return to form happening right now, more broadly, that I'm encouraged to see, where publishers can just say, I'm here to make great games. Like, what are you at? You've asked too much of publishers for these thousands of iterations now, where it's like, we just demand $1 million tournament circuit and all these kinds of things. Like,
I will say that we had, like, you know, the tournaments is something that is on the minds of our design team. Like, so the game is such where when you play it, like, you could do a best of 3 in under an hour. Cool. Totally. Yeah. If you're experienced, like, on the GameFound page, it says like 45 minutes. I think that's probably pretty accurate to like your first time, because you know, there's terms to learn. You know, like I don't want to like advertise like, hey, this is 30 minutes, and then people are probably like, no way, this took me 45 minutes to an hour. That's a lie. Yeah. But over time, you can really play this game fast.
Yeah. Zach's asking on the stream if we're playing it. Do you have any interest in that? Be honest with me. Is it too much to try to play this game right now?
I think on the stream it's too.
You don't want to like hack through it for the first time live.
I don't think,
give a great impression.
I don't think so. But when we
get
have
all the rules wrong.
But right. But when we have the final decks, obviously we'll give those to you guys. And
Sweet.
Then you can have at it.
When is PAX? When do these actually?
Beginning of December.
Okay, so it's coming up.
Oh yeah.
Send them in the Earthborne Ranger shipment.
Yeah, well, we're gonna print them like boutique. We're just gonna print them and cut them ourselves.
Okay.
They're not going to be anything you can take away from PAX with you. But they will be done. They'll be complete art and everything with all of our. We're doing some play testing right now and some like last minute rules tweaks and stuff. So it's coming down to the wire. We have some pretty good deadlines happening. I love the things that happen near the end of deadlines because that's oftentimes when the best stuff happens.
Man, that's so true. Actually, I'm actually feeling that right now. Hey, I have one more question, like one more Hubworld related question for you, and then we can open it up, and I'll pay a lot more attention to all of y'all out there in chat, which has been great to have everybody joining us for this. But kind of a deeper question for you, like, do you feel like a certain kind of obligation, or actually let me frame it this way in a very long-winded way. So Zach and I, when we were growing up in the LGS environment, we both loved the gameplay and like discovering this world through that and weekly tournaments that we went to. And it was just a incredibly kind of magical thing to realize that there were other people doing the same thing we were and that we could see if we could do it better. And that really was an inspiring thing for us throughout childhood. But at the same time, it pretty quickly became like, we really just wish this was done better. You know what I mean? Like we were stuffed in, to the back room of a store and we were elbow to elbow and it was plastic everything. And everybody was, had their 2-liter Mountain Dew or whatever. And everything was kind of sticky. It was like that
culture.
Yeah. It was like, it just felt like this is so much cooler than what this experience is being presented as, right? It's kind of an afterthought. And that really inspired us to start Covenant, and kind of the 17 years later, here we are. Do you have a similar kind of low-level burning fire about the LCG format from your time at FFG and see this as a way to redeem what you feel like it always could have been?
Maybe on a subconscious level.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately it's just the game. Like, this is an awesome game that I want to bring out to the world. And this is the format that I think works the best. And I think I'm definitely leaning on my LCG experience, where I feel like, honing it down to like a single set. Like, these are things like we talked about at FFG all the time. Yeah. Like, what would the market accept? And we landed on the a pack every month, and it was very cool. And I think it worked really, really well. Until it didn't. And I feel like I'm definitely taking lessons from that, but I don't feel like I'm out to avenge justify
like
the LCG model.
Like that you're the guy who's going to solve the competitive LCG. Like,
I mean, there's part of me that likes to be right about things. Yeah. So I do feel like it's something that can be done, and I would love to make it happen. I won't lie. There is probably part of it that is that, but ultimately, this is just the kind of game that I really enjoy, and I loved working on the LCGs. I thought it was a great format, and it is a shame that the competitive ones all fell off one by one. So, so I think like for me, there's a through line. It's like I met formed Earthborne. We're making Earthborne games, but we're all the same people. So it's like for me, it's all one line. Yeah, I don't really feel detachment from that at all, just because I'm not at that company anymore. Like those games were very important to a lot of us. So,
that's true.
So for me, it just kind of feels like a natural progression, I suppose. When we have a competitive card game, and there was a minute we were talking about like, could we do this collectible? Like we definitely entertained those ideas, and I think, there was a minute there where I was like, maybe we could do this collectible and like do paper packs and non-cord cards so you can recycle them and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think that the extant card game model is the right one for this, and I think it's time. Like there's too many CCGs, and we don't want to.
We've kind of reached the other side. Of that
I don't want to be another CCG. I felt like that bubble's been about to burst for years now. So maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think there's plenty of space for something like this, and I think it's a great game. People are gonna love it.
Was there ever a point where you were considering an NFT project?
Started investing in crowd slabs.
Have you guys considered what AI software model you're using for all of your art? Is it OpenSea or what is the I forget?
Or there is no AI art. It's all done by humans.
Done by humans. Are you doing digital and traditional, just digital, just traditional?
Well, right now, like I said, it's just Evan doing all the art right now. He's working digitally. He's come up with a pretty awesome process. He found some really great brushes that really emulate watercolor in a really, really cool way. So it looks like it's traditional. I would love to do traditional art. Like I had a minute when I was trying to think of like how to do the art for this game, because I know I wanted to do the kind of pen and ink plus watercolor look. I was like, what if we just send artists paper and a pen and say you have to use this material? You can paint it by hand or you can paint it in the computer, but you got to start with this pen and ink. Who knows? Maybe we'll still do that, but probably not. I think that's maybe a little bit too intense. But I really want it to feel handmade. Which is why the watercolor look is really where we landed.
Can you? I'm deeply concerned about my own philosophical dead end on AI and basically generative art and these kinds of things.
Because, oh, really? Where's your philosophy?
Well, because I do think eventually it's kind of almost a leap of faith, romance soul kind of thing that you have to fill in the gap with. It's almost like where does God exist kind of thing, but maybe not that big.
Let's do it.
Where's at a certain point you're working in a computer, brushes are emulating certain kinds of strokes that you can make with your hand. It's very clear that there's no hard line where suddenly the machine is doing too much or not enough so that it's more human than machine, more machine than human. How do you square that with your thoughts about art in this now 2024 age? AI is getting more obvious. It's getting less known. Even the artists probably know less about, is Photoshop actually kind of guessing more than I think Photoshop's guessing about what this color should be or what this scene is going to be, those kinds of things. And it's only going to get easier over time. So where's the line for you as far as this is no longer a human enough thing to be considered art?
Well, I think AI, while some people will call it a tool, I don't think is a tool. It's like I don't know. It's kind of like a replacement for effort.
All tools are that to some
degree.
No,
you still need to put an effort. No, I think tools like, you use a wrench, you can't just like stick the wrench on the bolt and be like, all right, turn. You still got to use your arm, right?
Yeah, true.
Sure. Or even if you're using like electric, you still got to pull the trigger. There's things that you need to do where the tool is an extension of yourself. And all the AI commercials that are thrown in my face, which I can't stand, and there's so many of them. It's like, oh, you're in Photoshop. Oh, let's just make a box and say put a Jaguar here. Like, that's not a tool. That's just like, oh, let's look at this sticker sheet and just put a sticker there. So like a computer program that emulates a watercolor brush is not doing that with artificial intelligence. It's a program that is emulating a physical effect. So if it's done right, you still need to go through the same process that you would go through
So
with something that's physical.
The physicality of the process is important to you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can see this in Rangers too. Like that's kind of like part of what that setting is like. Is the tools people use aren't automated, right? They still require a human hand to control. And there's a little bit in the campaign that kind of touches on that question of like how far is too far? How far is like is it just doing the work for you versus you doing the work with its assistance? And I think AI is all about, like, it tries to say like, oh, anyone can use it, so it's like it's this great like leveling of the playing field, but it's really not. Like there's someone who makes a box and says put a Jaguar there is not talented. They do not have any ability that anyone like who just kind of stumbles out of bed and like drools on their face while they're like you can do AI art without any real effort at all. And people who consider like drawing a box and typing in a prompt effort, no thank you. You are incorrect.
But what if you type in 3 prompts?
What
if over time?
Like, I refined it. Yeah, like, oh, maybe make that a little bit more flowy, or maybe the hair's a little more brown.
So
get out.
It sounds like if I'm gonna draw a line, it's that the human physicality must be involved in the process, right? You have to turn the wrench with your hand. You have to actually click the mouse and drag it around, or the touchpad, or the stylus, or whatever.
Yeah,
right? That's because that's the conduit
exactly
that is necessary for you to think that this is art.
That is the conduit that's required for art. I think there are a lot of artists who feel this way. I'm one of them who believes that they are a conduit for what comes. Like when I talked about like going into that world and imagining that, like, and observing, right? Like I literally don't feel like it's me who's coming up with it. I feel like I'm just accepting. And I think
who is coming up with it?
The
big universe.
That's a question for you, philosopher.
Spirit in the sky.
Like who knows? But I do feel like it comes from elsewhere. I don't feel like it comes from within. I think you interpret it, and I think that it's your responsibility to bring it to life. But I don't necessarily feel like it's generated from within. The best ideas, at least that I've ever had, never felt like they came from me. I felt like I received them. So I think that's a really important aspect that artificial intelligence as it currently stands is not capable of doing. Like if AI is out there making art by itself without a prompt, maybe we'll talk.
Yeah. What if they start receiving? Wow. Wouldn't that be crazy?
That would be crazy.
Wow.
But that's when I think the conversation can change. But for now, it's not that.
Okay. So once the AI is talking directly to the
God.
Lord, then we can talk.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will definitely have you back on when that happens. Any questions, y'all? Have any questions for Andrew out there in the world?
There are a good amount of questions. I'm going to start at the beginning, even though it doesn't make as much sense, like narratively. So we'll start with our friend Alex Becker from early up here.
Alex Becker out there delivering the mail or not, based on our experience with USPS.
Yeah, goodness gracious.
He's probably sitting at the regional center smoking cigarettes. That's what Alex is doing right now. Just staring at packages.
So Andrew, you were talking earlier about kind of a more hands-off approach to OP, and Alex was asking, is your team going to track the meta and ban problem cards, or are they going to just let players make those decisions at a local event? Now, I know you have banned Earthborne cards. No, you said maybe not
almost
these,
got you,
right?
didn't he?
Yeah.
You said something right about like, well, maybe these.
I think it was if you want to do it's like these are maybe too good, and if you want to be
like
hard.
We're working on a revised, like a kind of like the Arkham Horror taboo list called the Elder's Book of Uncommon Wisdom.
Oh wow, way cooler.
Which will have a list of cards that will have alternate rules that if you want to play with, more hardcore rules you can, but it'll be optional. So I imagine that we'll probably have something similar for this, but the fact that we'll be rotating every 4 years, 4 sets, that should mitigate a lot of these issues. But I think it is incumbent upon the publisher, if there's like, hey, yeah, this one escaped our notice. That is kind of important to get out there and say something about it. And I don't think it's really as impactful as, say, what Wizards did recently, where you have these cards that are worth money on their own that are now banned, and then it affects the people who are speculating. And it has all these other ramifications that
weirdest thing.
In an LCG, in an extant card game environment, it would not have those same problems.
Yeah.
So it only irritate people who are like, oh man, that's the one I used. But it's not like they're now out $500 that they just spent to get that card. Right?
So it's more of a like a oopsie kind of a thing than a this is to keep the meta like hardcore and fresh.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think we could have. I think what I would, and we'll see how things go. Obviously, once it's out in the wild, then we'll know what we need to do. But we'll absolutely be paying attention to the meta, and that will, clearly inform our design decisions as we go into new sets. It's the same thing that, competitive card games always do.
Yeah.
You pay attention to what's going on. You make little tweaks here and there to the factions, and like, oh, this faction, we'd like to give it a little bit of a boost, so we're going to do something here. Well,
that kind of thing.
That thing will happen 100%.
This one was addressed earlier, but some people are just now joining us. There will be demos at PAX.
There will, yes.
All right, everyone, queue up now.
Yep, in the demo area. So we'll have two locations. We'll have the main Earthborne booth, which is where the fingers crossed we'll have Earthborne Rangers products for sale.
You better bring a lot. I feel like I don't know that you can have too much there to sell.
I have no idea. I think I'm being pretty aggressive with how many I asked for, but I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see. It's all I really care about is making sure we're covering the cost of being there, and that'd be great. Anything we don't sell, we have to bring back with us. So
yeah, right.
So there's definitely a line to walk there. So we'll have the main Earthborne booth, and then we'll also have a booth in the demo area, which is a different part of the hall.
We just got back from old Spiel.
Yeah,
and they were more demo and buy at the same place.
Yes.
So the American conventions seem to split that place space up, which does have some advantages. I will tell you.
I think if we had a bigger footprint booth, then we would all have it in that one spot. But it's the same size booth we had last time, so we have enough space for like 2 Earthborne Rangers tables and some product, and that's it. So we need to spread out in order so we can even showcase Eidolon. But I think we're going to have 4 games available of Eidolon at a time at the in the demo space.
Are you gonna have
Corey will be there.
Will you have a big banner? Are you gonna do some kind of big marketing thing?
We'll have a banner.
You can't do a whole lot down the hall.
You're not allowed to do much signage in that area.
Oh.
So I think we're gonna do like a table skirt and have like a little standy vertical banner. I think that's really all you're allowed.
Will all the cards have art, you think?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep. They will all have art. Yep. Evan's on good pace. He's like two and a half illustrations a week.
He's a machine.
He is. He is. He's feeling it now, though, too. Like, I really want to give him a break.
Yeah. Just for you, on that note, asking what's it like to work with the card game equivalent of a 70s supergroup? Do you have to spend most of your time diffusing egos, or is everyone pretty chill?
Everyone's really chill.
All the Costa Rica pictures you post look pretty chill.
Yeah.
That's a good way to keep everybody pretty chill.
Yeah, bring around to Costa Rica.
Yeah,
they were, I think it was a little bit of a environment shock for a lot of them. It's very, very humid and very different. I had them doing yoga every other day. That was definitely not something they were used to. But it was
coolest boss ever.
Man. It was super fun. We had a bunch of hikes
forcing
and stuff.
people to do yoga.
Making people mandatory yoga, and that wasn't mandatory, but everyone did it. Went on some hikes and stuff. No, everyone's super chill. Like everyone is very capable and very respectful of everyone's talents and opinions.
Yeah.
Like we've all been doing this for everyone now. I think for over a decade. Everyone who's on the team.
Everyone's kind of proven themselves. There's really nothing.
Right.
Like that's gone.
Exactly. Rapport, there's. I don't feel like there's a big clash of egos or anything. I think, maybe I have the biggest ego, but that's kind of my job. So I feel like that's what's required.
What a sacrifice! Yeah.
Well, I know myself well enough that like the role that I'm in is, I think, an appropriate role for me, and I feel confident in it, and I think the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Loose Leaf T asking, this is, I think, a really good question. I'm curious your answer. What's one style or theme of game you'd love to make or publish, and what's one that you have no interest in?
Do you have anything in the third slot?
Yeah, there's a couple of things we're working on.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, of the things that you're not currently working on, what is one thing, just the loose theme that you have a distinct interest in?
I do want to make a solo-only game. I have an idea for a solo-only game that I've been kind of noodling on for a long time. And,
is there a theme attached to it?
Yeah.
What
Yes.
What is it? What's like a couple of descriptor words, haiku, whatever.
Haiku.
A haiku.
Faith.
575. Faith.
Oh man, we are going to get into the nature of God, aren't we? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually an AI that runs the game. You engage with it, but it encounters the divine, and then it spits out a scenario in front of you, and it's a new scenario every time.
Yeah, it's an idea I've had for a long time, and I think it would work really well for a solo game because it is something that's so personal, and help be introspective in that way. I think it'd be really cool.
Wow.
That's
we'll bring that
the most
on.
interesting thing I've heard today, and I've heard a lot of interesting things.
Okay, and then to the spirit of the question, what is one thing that you don't ever see yourself producing? It can't be a dystopian future game or a medieval faction warfare game.
We will never do a party game.
Okay, great.
Well, maybe not. Never say never. Like I guess if I encounter a party game that is like, no, we got to do this one. I'll never seek out a party game.
So a miniatures game is technically on the table.
I would love to do a miniatures game. I love miniatures games.
Really?
Everybody loves miniatures games.
Just
nobody knows quite how to play them or engage with them.
Yeah, I mean, clearly we're making these miniatures.
That's true. You are dipping your toes in.
We do not make a lot of money on those. Let me just say, like, they're purely a passion thing for me.
And they are very cool.
They are cool, yeah. And I keep we do have finally the near final sculpts on those. Those are going to production very, very soon. Obviously, because we're going to start fulfilling. We finally finished getting those ready, and we're not making a ton of them because they don't. There's no reason for me to print over because.
You just lose.
We just lose money.
Take a bath.
Yeah, the margins are awful. I think I've said before they're about the same cost as a core game of Rangers.
Okay, so tell me this: that's crazy.
Yeah, because they're so small. There's so few, and it's metal, and it's this whole thing.
If you were going to do a miniatures game, is there any theme that comes to mind?
I would love to do an Earthborne Rangers miniatures game. That's like. Effectively like taking the experience of playing Earthborne Rangers as a card game and turning it into a miniatures game.
Would it be okay? So it'd be co-op and kind of an exploration?
Yeah, I think it could be co-op, or you could have one person play as nature.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
That could be cool. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
There's been there are some games out there that have explored that kind of co-op, go around, explore stuff, encounter things. The Saddlers did a game that was that. I forget what it was called. I don't even know if that might have been one of the Blacklist games that never came to be.
Right on.
But there are some other like smaller like niche games that try to do like a solo or cooperative miniatures game.
Cards in Favor of Humanity is a hilarious joke.
That's very funny. I love
That's the Earthborne party game.
That's pretty good.
All right. What else have we got?
All right. So maybe send me that pitch.
That's right. So Alex was wondering if TC would be interested in maybe having a subscription for Hubworld. I don't know if we're ready to answer that or not.
Yeah, we'll support anything Andrew does.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anything Earthborne's doing, we'll be right there until you tell us we can't.
I appreciate that.
Which, I mean, that would be a devastation for everybody. If we did something
it would be a real bummer.
Stay away, guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of my goals from the beginning has been to work with you guys. So
yeah, it's been awesome, man.
Yeah, so it's happening. So I'm gonna keep it going.
It really has been awesome.
That's awesome. I love that.
We if we put our heads together, we can do something unique with this format for Hubworld. I think we're going to talk about that this week, right?
Yeah.
I think we can really. There's got to be something there between distribution and having that element of our business plus content, marketing, and those kinds of things, and then you making this great game and how we distribute cards and if things can feel more living somehow. We've got some ideas in the Organized Play front too that I think we'll discuss. But yeah, I'm stoked because like I asked you that question about kind of the burning desire. I think we have some of that too. To be like, we know this can work somehow. It's just like the screws haven't been turned quite the right way in the right places to make this format sing. Yeah. Hopefully this is the way to do it. I just don't, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
We've got 2 developers now on staff. We've got 2 video people on staff.
That's right.
We're ready, man. We got plenty of. We've got 4 for ops there to pack orders, get things out on time. We're ready. I don't know. We'll do something.
Are we equal in the number of employees with Earthborne? Is it time to take it to the streets?
Yeah, hold on. We've hired actually a lot this year.
Like a little West Side Story.
Let's see. We got 4 there. 5 is Zach. 6, 7, 8, 9. We're at 10.
So you got us outnumbered.
Yeah.
That's right. We're gonna stick
the race is on, baby.
We're gonna stay where we are for a while.
How big do you think you could get without getting bad?
I want to stay where we are for a while, honestly, because we've doubled this year.
So over 9 makes a bad company, is what you're saying?
No, well, so I mean, the big thing right now is that we're still all remote. So I think I've been talking to the team a lot about just getting a space. So that's going to be part of what I want to do when I head back to Minnesota here in a few days. Is to start actually looking for spaces.
Well, wait, now tell me. Now this is, I thought Andrew Navaro was going to be living in Costa Rica within the next year. So are you moving back to Minnesota? You're trying to get a full-time, a building, create a studio, get people to move there?
Well, I don't think I'm necessarily going to make people move. We only have 2 people who are out of state.
All right, they're all Minnesotans.
Yeah, they're all Minnesota anyway. And we've all expressed to each other the desire to get together more frequently. You know, so Fisher and Maxine will sometimes go out and hang out at a coffee shop at work. I used to go to Fisher's every week, once a week, just to hang out in the same space, and I really enjoyed that time together, and it was incredibly valuable. We always had really good conversations. So I just think there's something once you get to a certain size, you're really benefited by sharing space so that you can create a culture.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. We struggle with that too after the pandemic. It's like how and why, and can you actually say come back to the office? Are you more productive remote? Productivity, yes, but culture, no. And where do you draw those lines? Felt that for sure.
So I think it would be great to be able to have something that we could potentially move into by the time my family and I come back. Our planned return is for the beginning of the summer. Again, but that one I think is happening regardless because my youngest son's going to high school and.
So you guys are staying in Minnesota at least until.
Yeah, so for at least 4 years. But again, it's 5 years from now, where will life be? It's hard to say.
And it does sound like you were thriving in Costa Rica.
I like it a lot down there. It's been really, really good for me. But it's entirely possible that that it'll have served its purpose and given us the reprieve we felt like we needed from just being in the States and the energy here, which can be kind of crazy. So
you don't say.
So having that level of detachment has been nice. I really like being warm.
Yeah. You strike me as that kind of person.
Yeah, it's great.
You're like a sun guy.
I try to get out in the sun every day, and it's hard because it's sometimes because it's very rainy there. So we've been going through a pretty rainy period right now. So when and we were there through all the rainy season.
Yeah.
So like there are some days where the sun really only comes out for like 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to get out there and take it. But yeah, try to get as much sun as I can. It feels really good. I do feel kind of like a plant, like where I need some direct sunlight for at least a few minutes every day.
You're the right guy to be running Earthborne, let me tell you. I feel like a plant.
So, a friend of the show, Joe Phillips, asking, is Hubworld meant to be a best of 3 or a one game to rule them all? You'd mentioned best of 3 earlier.
Yeah, you could do what you want, but we have tried to get the game length such where you could do 3 games in an hour.
Yeah.
In a tournament format.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
And the space it takes up should only be the 3x3 times 2.
Yep, it fits real nice on a couple of playmats.
Great.
Yeah, we will have printed playmats at PAX.
Are they going to have the grid on them?
We'll have the grid on them.
Oh my gosh, there it is. There it is. Any other questions? I'll open it up one more time, and then we can just get out of here and get on with our business
from
for today.
Robin. So, any plans for team formats? This also goes back to like official, not official. You can do what you want.
Yeah.
But I think this is interesting. With little or no official organized play, are you considering releasing things for basically the players of the game to make their own alt arts, like the templates for the cards and stuff?
That's pretty cool, yeah. It's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, most people have been able to just rip the templates.
Yeah.
I don't think we really need to give them to anybody. Templates. Like they can just do that on their own. Yeah, I think that we always have this desire to want to this desire to give people like essentially like marketing kit stuff. But then it's really hard to make the time to do that, and because it takes a decent amount of effort to put all that stuff together, put all the messaging behind it, so I think it's certainly not off the table. How much time we'll have to devote to something like that, I don't know.
Yeah,
you're better off probably just taking the card and ripping it.
You heard it.
It's not hard.
Just rip it. Rip it yourself.
Anything else you want to say, Andrew, before we get out of here? It's just a pleasure to have you, but I do have a slightly selfish interest in.
Yeah, we do have. I did not come here just to be on the live stream.
And I would like to go to that. There's the gluten-free brewery here, just like 5 minutes down the road. Neff. Yeah.
Well, we should go there
and I know
maybe
that's
play a game of some kind.
That's what I'm thinking too. So like this is just the start of the evening for us, which I'm excited to get to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else regarding Earthborne Rangers, Earthborne Studios, Hubworld, Aidalon, or yourself? Anything you want to get out there?
I'd just close on how grateful I am to be here. Like really happy to be here in Tulsa with you guys again. It's been too long. So I love being here. I love seeing the place. The studio is amazing. The building is awesome. You guys have impeccable taste.
Oh, thank you.
It might just be you, Stephen. Are you?
No, it's not.
A lot of it is Stephen. To be absolutely fair.
Maybe, yeah.
It's great. But I'm just incredibly grateful to be here. I'm incredibly grateful to be able to bring games like this to people and for everyone's support on Rangers. It's been really great, and I can't really express truly how much it means to me and to all of us to be able to do this, and for the work that we do to be received so well and so loved. So thank you everyone who's watching.
Awesome.
That is a great way to end, but I want to get one last question in because I think it's important. Because you've been through it, you've seen the industry, etc. So Danny asking, and Danny's been awesome throughout this whole stream. Do you have any advice for someone who wants to make their own game someday? Just kind of general, like what should people watch out for?
What should they watch out for?
Or just advice?
I would say my best advice is to make it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it. Yeah, like
the best way to learn.
So no one who works at Earthborne or who I've ever worked with at FFG, had never made a game before they started doing it professionally. Even I designed games when I was a kid. I designed a very dumb role-playing game. It was like a D100 system.
Thank you. My gosh. Can we please make that game? I love that big dumb D100.
I wish I had. I don't know if I still have the printouts from it, but anyway, I wrote it all up. I like had all these monsters. I mean, just do the thing, and the more you do the thing, the more comfortable you'll become. And don't put any pressure on yourself to publish it or to like, oh man, this art, my art sucks. Who cares? Just make it. But then when you start to become more serious about it, I would say to work with the people you know to help you and get support from those around you, because I could not have made Earthborne Rangers without the help of a lot of people, and without the benefit of my years of experience. So it all builds. So yeah, if making a game is something that you want to do, then by all means do it. Yeah. I think that's what most game designers and game creators say is like, just start making something. Yeah, it's hard to take that leap, but it's just getting it down. Like any creative endeavor, right? Like, it all benefits from experience and from practice, like everything. And honestly, one of the things for me is the practice of getting the thing out. No, like not the practice of making it, the practice of finishing it. That itself is a skill. Yeah. And I think people with that skill really excel. Yeah, it's hard to do. Like, it's so hard. I've had so many projects that have gone nowhere. Like so many personal projects that I started, like get excited about it, do a bunch of little work on the front end, but then when it comes to like actually finishing it, it all kind of just peters out. Yeah. So yeah, for me, like getting Earthborne Rangers done was a massive accomplishment. So it's like, I know it's a company, and from the outside, it feels like a company to people, but to me, it's just me. So from my perspective, like this is the first project that I've ever seen from beginning to end, that I've been in charge of from start to finish and actually completed it. It's your Zelda. Kind of, yeah. Yeah. So cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Andrew. You are welcome. I've got a text from Zach. Okay, don't need to worry about that. Con gusto. And I would say to you, it's quite a trip for us to go from some essentially kids, enthusiastic kids with a video camera, to 17 years later, almost 18 years later, sitting down on a live stream with an audience of people, many of which we've actually sold games to or met in person, to now be talking to somebody of your stature in the industry. So that's an amazing thing for us too. And thank you for being here. And thank you all for being here and for joining us every week on Wednesdays at noon. And if you didn't catch the documentary we released yesterday, please do just go look at it. You don't have to care about sorcery. You don't have to care about card games. As long as you care about people making a difference for other people, I think you'll enjoy the piece. So check that one out on our channel, and we will see you next week. I don't know what we're doing, but we'll figure something out. Do we know what we're doing next week? Prep for Sorcery Con. We're prepping for Sorcery Con. That's right. You're going to Vegas. Yeah, Vegas, baby. What a life, man! Really, we went from absolute peanuts to going to Vegas together. The whole team is going. Oh wow! Everybody. We're taking the entire team, paying for everybody to be there. Pretty cool. You get everyone like an allowance, a gambling allowance. $7,000 for craps a person. Yes, but you got to pay it back. You get $7,000 up front, and then if you lose it all, you're out. Your job is taken. That's it. So anyway, thanks you guys for being here. We'll see you next week, and we'll be prepping for Sorcery Con, and go to our Discord if you want to chat in the meantime. Take care.